Call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by Salvation Army.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, community members, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to corporately go to God in prayer. Let's pray. Lord God, on this week that we celebrate Thanksgiving Day here in our great nation, Lord, we pause to look at all the blessings you have given us. We cannot help but be humbled and thankful for all of them. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the mayor and the city council members and their leadership during these unprecedented times. We ask for your strength and guidance here tonight as this meeting takes place. We thank you, Father, in advance for the decisions that will come out of this meeting. We ask that this place be filled with the peace and calmness that can only come from above. May each and every person here tonight pause, reflect on just how blessed we are to be living in a nation that allowed us the freedom to come and have our voices heard. May we each take a breath and pause for a few seconds here to let our emotions and thoughts calm down so the words that come out of our mouths will be pleasing and honoring to you. Let's pause for a moment of silence. Please come fill this place with your Holy Spirit. Allow every single person here tonight to be filled with the fruits of the Spirit, which are love for one another, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. In a sign of unity with one another and with the one who taught us this prayer, please join me in reciting the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Smith.
Here.
Charks.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Barrington.
Here.
McCardle.
Here.
Dosher. Rice.
Here.
Sabers.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Second reading adoption of Ordinance 020-2013, an emergency ordinance to require wearing face coverings in certain locations due to COVID-19. Let me start out by saying I've had a number of people approach me as to why I passed an emergency order. And the reason I did is because this council was, the majority of them were for this and requested it. And I had stated earlier, if council approved an ordinance to wear masks, I would enforce it, as is my duty. In doing so, I put it into effect Tuesday at the request of council Monday night, knowing full well that tonight would be a night where we would have further discussion. We would have the second reading and the adoption of it. So that is the point why I did that. As you notice, I am 6 feet from anybody else, so I have my mask off. I will ask that all of you that want to speak, you're welcome to speak. We ask that you do not repeat things constantly, so we're just hearing the same over and over. If you have something to add to the discussion, by all means add to it. There will be a 5-minute limit. It will be up on that screen, the timer, and we will tell you when your time is up. So we appreciate listening to everybody that we can. As I said, please do not repeat what other people said. Bring your own ideas to the podium. So with that, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to just point out, first of all, that there are two different options on the agenda tonight. I'm the one that brought forward the resolution, and that is just in case that the mandate is not voted in. So if by chance the mandate is voted, I will make the motion to then deny the resolution. But I just wanted to have two options in front of us. And I do want to point out that with the resolution, that one is not a mandate. That is similar to what Sioux Falls, and it was a little confusion there. What was handed to us was a resolution that Sioux Falls had in place that was not a mandate, and that was brought forward by Mayor Tenhagen. And then later in the meeting, there was an ordinance in Sioux Falls that was passed. Thanks to Steve, he found that for me, because I just thought it was a resolution. And so there was an ordinance that was brought forward by two council people in Sioux Falls, and everybody knows that was also passed by a 6-2 margin in Sioux Falls. So I just wanted to point that out, Mr. Mayor, and it's up to you, but it's my thought is not to have separate conversation, that it would all be included into the same presentation. So if we do get over with the mandate and it does not pass, that we could start completely over.
Okay.
I'm hoping that we will be able to include all conversations while the general public has the ability for the input.
Okay, and that works for me. Do you all understand that? So if you want to speak to anything relative to the mask mandate or the resolution that's shown here, you should speak to it at one time. What will happen is if the ordinance does not pass the second reading and adoption, then there will be a discussion as to whether to adopt the resolution, which is really just a suggestion more so than anything, okay? Am I summarizing that correctly? Okay. Anything else from council?
I was just going to make one more comment on the prayer that we just heard. I hope that we can have a civil conversation tonight. Obviously, there's points on both sides, and people are very adamant of their points. It seems like in this country we've gotten to a point where if you don't agree with somebody, then you dislike them or you have to take offense to it. I hope we can get back to maybe respecting the other person's point of view and be willing to at least agree to disagree without still being civil. I ask that we refrain from swearing tonight. I don't think that needs to be included into anybody's presentation. And also, Mr. Mayor, you've done a very good job on monitoring the time. I think we need one timekeeper, and that would be you. So then we don't have other people making comments. And obviously applause is encouraged, but we don't need to be having anybody yelling during the presentation. So I'm just asking that we be able to listen to everybody and give them their time that they are allowed.
We'll do our best. Thank you. Anything else from council?
I just want to add one thing. Obviously, I think we all recall last Monday night, I sort of voiced my opinion, the fact of how the ordinance got changed on the floor here, which I felt that was sort of incorrect to the citizens of Mitchell. I do appreciate those that have come out tonight for or against the mandate that is coming forth this night. It just wanted to make sure that my point of what I was trying to get at last week, the clarity of it, because there was a lot of confusion that I heard too from people about my stance on where we're at, which obviously will all be determined this evening. But the point of that, everybody had the right to be heard. And that was my whole point of my situation last week. And I'm glad that we have a lot of people here tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing both sides of the stance on mask mandate. But I just want to thank everybody for showing up. I'd like to thank everybody for the emails, the phone calls over the week. I can speak for every one of us council members. By far, this is the most phone calls and emails we've ever received, for sure, in my 14 years sitting here. So I do appreciate the public definitely speaking their opinions and voicing them out there. So, and I'm glad we're all here this evening. And I agree with Jeff. I just hope we can do it in a manner that is civil-like, because obviously we all know this has separated our country, it has separated our state, it has separated our citizens of Mitchell, it has separated some of our homes. And the biggest thing is we got to get through it together as a community, as a whole, as a nation, and as a world. So I just thank us all coming here this evening, and I hope we can do it just like Jeff said too.
Thank you very much for showing up this evening.
Can you get it up there? Okay. Yeah, no, I'll try to watch that as they talk. So the timer will be up here. There, you see it there. We ask that as you see it start to wind down towards 0, you try to wrap up your comments for us, please. And I will tell you when time is up and ask you to stop talking. So with that, we'll open it to comments. Who wants to go first? Just a reminder, state your name, and council, would like to know what ward you're from.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Chris Lippert. I'm from Ward 4. I have been a nurse here at the hospital for over 25 years. Come from a healthcare family. My wife's Dr. Campbell here in town, and we have children that are nurses as well. I'm not here to talk about statistics or anything like that, because that's not who I am and kind of what I'm about. I'm here more to talk about what's going on in my world and what comes from my heart as well. I recently spent a weekend in the ICU, which isn't one of my areas, but that's one of the things.
Can you pull the microphone closer to your mouth?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Okay. I recently spent a weekend in the ICU taking care of a woman who had COVID. And in talking to her, she's like, oh, I don't know how I got this. There's just no way I could have gotten this because I live at home. And, it had to have been my family and kids coming in to see me. And I said, well, I don't know. And she said, I'll be honest with you, we didn't believe in masks at all. But she said, we certainly do now. And I thought that was a pretty strong comment. On a similar day like that, we were seeing a gentleman come in, an elderly man who came in and sat and talked to him at the beginning of the shift. And unfortunately, by the end of the shift, he had given in to COVID. It's a rapidly deteriorating virus when it hits a certain person. Just want to talk a little bit about the current state. We have staff in the hospital working 60+ hours a week trying to keep up with the demands we have here in the hospital. Not only our hospital, but across our state. But if you look at Davidson County in recent history, we've had times where we've had 50% positivity. So 1 of every 2 persons was positive when we tested them. So we really can't ignore that. I have a son that called me the other day and he said, hey, talking to me, he's on his way home, and he said, yeah, I'm just finishing my 5th shift this week, so 60 hours, and they were calling him to work another one. We can't keep up with it. People are getting sick. They're getting sick from illnesses that have nothing to do with COVID. People are just getting sick and fatigued from working. I had the unfortunate task of going to pick up my brother-in-law's belongings from a long-term care facility because he died last week. I went the following day and brought some gifts for the staff there, and they came out to the door and socially distanced and whatnot, and they were crying. And I said, well, here's these gifts I brought. And they said, that's really unnecessary. I said, well, maybe so, but, I really believe that we understand what you're going through. I have a daughter that's a nurse in long-term care. And so she's crying. She said, well, that's great because you know what? We oftentimes aren't allowed to give or don't have the pleasure of giving our staff breaks to get lunches. The number of COVID patients aren't only affecting the people we're caring for, they're affecting our own employees. And then we are limited with how we can care for the people coming in. With my brother-in-law as well, going to the funeral home, talking to them, and they're like, the problem is, in this last week, we took care of as many deaths as we typically take care of in a busy month. So if we don't think, I don't know how anyone can ignore these facts, these stories, if you will. It kind of reminded me of a quote. All the arguing about politics and people saying it's political or it's a hoax or whatever they want to say. Reminded me of a quote by Saul Alinsky. He said, people cannot be free unless they're willing to sacrifice some of their own interests to guarantee the freedoms of others. The price of a democracy is the ongoing pursuit of the common good by all people. So we really could go and talk about the golden rule, right? I mean, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I, for one, am going to do unto others as I'd have them do unto me. I don't want anyone else bringing a virus into my family. It already has, but not intentionally, I'm sure. But we have to take every step we can to take care of each other. I mean, the CDC has recommended that the vast majority of healthcare professionals have endorsed it. I mean, we've got to mask. We've got to wear our masks over our noses. We've got to wash our hands. We've got to stop big gatherings. We've got to social distance. And I just do not understand how anyone can't see that. And really, we're not going to do it unless there's a penalty. I won't. I wouldn't have when I was, texting and driving until they put a penalty on it. Didn't matter to me. Then all of a sudden it meant something.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I don't know what ward I'm in. We moved out here. We're in the Corn Palace now. We moved out from Washington State. We saw Governor Christie. Nome was on TV and said, come to South Dakota. No lockdown, no mask mandate, great place to live. So, we left our home there in Pasco, moved out here, and now we're up against this, a mask mandate. I guess it goes down to the city level here now.
State your name, would you please?
My name's Jonathan Wilson.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's fine.
I'm watching the clock over here. So the question is, do the mask mandates work? Now, CDC reported last month that out of 100 cases of COVID, that 85 people were wearing masks, still came down with it anyway. There's been very little in science. We hear a lot about get your mask on, get your mask on. Now, the people that don't think that's effective aren't telling people, well, take yours off. We're for liberty for all. And so there's very little data because people are afraid to come out with a political climate, like our brother was saying over here. But there has been a study in Denmark. They took 6,000 people, and out of those 6,000 that they studied over the period of about 5 weeks, 42 that were in the mask group came down with COVID-19. The 54 that were in the non-mask group came down with it. So they said, the consensus is that it's not effective. Now, as you look at Europe, Northern Europe, they're not wearing masks in Holland, Sweden, Denmark. They have the lowest rate. And the mask places, Spain and Italy, where everybody's wearing masks, they have the highest rate, and it's spreading. And you can see yourself that in New York, in Washington State, in these states where they're really enforcing the mask mandate, it's out of control anyway. So it's not the masks that are keeping people from getting it. And can it grow? Well, yeah. If one person has COVID-19, and let's say in the 4 or 5 days that he just infects 2 more, then you got 2 people, 2 can go to 4, and so it can spread like that. As we've been here in South Dakota and we've talked to people that have had it, and a lot of people have had it, and also in Washington State, we've asked them, have they given you any medicine? There's at least 3 medicines that are effective against it: hydroxychloroquine, remdesivir, and Regeneron. And everyone that we've talked to has said, no, they gave us no medicine. Listen, if you want to clear out the hospitals, how about giving the people the medicine that's working against it? And why are you going at people that don't believe in wearing masks if you're not going to give medicine? That just seems ridiculous that they have thousands of cases of people that have been saved by taking these medicines, and then it's not being given by medical staff. And so anyway, that's part of it. Now, the chiefs in Europe are saying that the health chiefs are saying the masks are ineffective, don't enforce the masks. And as we were saying the Pledge of Allegiance, liberty and justice for all. The scientific data, if you want the reports, I can send them to you, I can email them to you. And I'm talking about the study that was done, but the science data says the masks are ineffective. Now, if somebody wants to wear one, I don't have any problem with that. I'm not going to attack them on the street or anything. But I do think that we ought to look at liberty and we ought to look at the science. And the science right now, as you can see, the states that have it and what's happening in Europe is saying the masks are ineffective. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Mandy Greenway, and I live in Ward 3. I am a dermatologist with the Vera Queen of Peace. As a dermatologist, I am not working in the hospital taking care of COVID patients yet, so I will not speak to that personal experience. Vera leaders have already spoken at length regarding the current strained situation within our local hospital. To keep up with the increasing admissions, many clinic staff have been pulled to work in the hospital, leaving those of us in the clinic struggling to continue to see the patients at the same volume as normal, helping people get care in the clinic and avoid the need for hospitalizations. Those of us in the clinic are constantly thinking about our coworkers who have been pulled to the hospital. We know that they are doing their best in an uncomfortable situation and know that it can be scary to work in a position which is outside of your comfort zone, but they are doing it all for all of us. And while I know I don't speak for every healthcare worker, I do speak for a lot of us when I say we feel like we're living in two different worlds. We come to work in a mask, get screened, put a different mask on, put goggles or face shield on, and wear this all day while seeing patients. Every day, I have numerous patients that call in to cancel because they are sick or quarantined. The worst calls, which I got 2 today, are when it is a family member calling to cancel because the patient is in the hospital or has passed away. Every day, we hear from patients that have thankfully recovered, hear their stories of how sick they were and how lucky they feel to have survived. Then we leave work and see people walking around in the community without masks, without distancing, getting together in groups, living their life like nothing is happening. It really hurts to see this because we know that this means we're going to have to keep doing all of this for so much longer. All of us are tired of it. All of us want life to go back to normal. But the way this happens is by controlling the virus. The path to control the spread is clear. There are excellent recommendations and data from innumerable medical organizations. Staying home when sick, cleaning surfaces, distancing from others, and yes, wearing a mask. I truly don't understand how wearing a mask became so controversial. The science behind them is overwhelming, and I've shared several reputable articles with the council already. Efforts to distract and confuse with discussions about viral particle size, carbon dioxide release, bacterial infections, etc., are misleading, dangerous, and deadly. Each day that we aren't all doing our part to control this, more people get sick, more people get pulled out of school, more teachers can't be in the classroom, more employees need to stay home, more businesses temporarily or permanently close, more residents in nursing homes don't get to see their families, and more people struggle with anxiety and depression from social isolation. And yes, each day we argue about the details of mask effectiveness, more of our neighbors, friends, and family die from this virus. We have tried relying on individual responsibility in this fight, and it has not worked. We have tried encouraging, suggesting, begging, and urging, but this hasn't worked either. Therefore, I fully support an enforceable citywide mask mandate ordinance. We currently live in a state with the fewest containment strategies in the nation. And as a result, our state is second in the nation for per capita cases since November 1st, highest in the nation for per capita hospitalizations, and highest in the nation for per capita deaths. If South Dakota was a country, we would have the highest per capita deaths in the world. Even more sobering, Davidson County is currently the 11th worst county in the nation for per capita new cases. We are the hotspot, and we need this mask mandate to help turn the tide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Bates, Big Dummies Bar. First of all, I would like to say that I am not against masks. If people want to wear them, I have no problem with people wearing them. My tables have been 6 feet apart since this all started, so I'm not against that. I also didn't fight against the children, because children wearing masks, they're not as aware of their surroundings and washing hands as adults are. We as adults are far more capable of making good decisions. Also, I respect any business that wants to enforce a mask to come into their business. We have the choice to come in or not to come in. Also, I'd like to say that nurses and teachers are probably the most underpaid people there are, and I respect what they do. But also, this is straight from some nurses, the hospitals put such strict policies on surgeries they deemed unnecessary that there was a huge amount of layoffs, and now the hospitals are behind because of layoffs, and nurses are getting pulled from department to department. So, maybe the hospital made a mistake, maybe they didn't. I've also seen from a lot of people in Mitchell that said, well, screw them, I'm going to go shop in Sioux Falls or shop online. Your decision is what affects small businesses with jobs and employees in this town. Last April, I pleaded with you not to close. Dr. Campbell read some statistics from New York City, which scared everybody. We are not New York. We never have been. We never will be. And I think it was a bad decision, and the backlash from that decision is you lost the city millions in revenue and sales tax, jobs, businesses closed that never opened back up, and quite a few are on their last leg right now. I think you should wear a mask when it's necessary. If I want to go see my 70-year-old mother, I have no problem putting one on. If I deliver food to the nursing home, I put one on, walk up and deliver it, no problem. A business that wants me to wear them, no problem. But also, in my business, with the 6 feet apart, I don't shake people's hands anymore. I don't hug people anymore. I wash my hands, and since we've opened back up, not one of my employees has been sick. I haven't been sick. My wife hasn't been sick. So obviously, if you can take some steps to be self-aware, there are ways to contain it. Not to mention just using some common sense. And health, starts way before a mask. I don't have any right to tell you to get on a treadmill or quit smoking as you do to tell me how to live my life. How many of those COVID deaths were smokers or overweight people? 480,000 people die a year of smoking, 300,000 die of obesity. So, maybe you should start taking better care of yourselves before the mask, and the death rate probably would lower then. Not to mention, they say it's lower rate in children, and you have an 80% chance of catching it in your home. So closing gyms, closing schools, and shutting down businesses did not work, because I'm telling you right now, people did not social distance. They had house parties, they had family gatherings, and I'm not going to call anybody out and name any names, but we all know who we are. I have signs on my door recommending social distance. I have signs saying, wear your mask if you're not eating or drinking. I can encourage people all I want, but I don't have a right to tell someone how to live their life. And I think that we need to be responsible. If I walk across the street and get hit by a car because I didn't look, is it my fault for not looking, or is it your fault for not telling me I needed to look? We need to take care of ourselves, and we can reiterate numbers all you want, but I did read one study that said there's only a 0.23 difference from masks than not masks. So for not even 1/4%, I think let's just have good hygiene and take better care of ourselves and be aware of our surroundings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reed Bender. I love you, Dr. Margallo. You know I love you, right? I do got to point something out, though. I am the self-professed dirtiest man in the room. I'm touching this podium right now. No idea where these hands have been today, do you? Think about that. But while he come up after me, he touched his mask on the inside as he pointed out to everybody that we should wear masks. I don't think that's a good way to, the doctor shouldn't do that. Now, Dr. Arnold also touched her mask when she pointed it out, but she grabbed the side of her mask, touching the inside of their mask. Now, Dr. Arnold was a pediatrician for my oldest son, and when he was a year and a half, she told us that he would have ADD. So at that point, we left the doctor and we never went back because I don't want my pediatrician to push drugs on my kids. Now, she didn't, but I assumed she would at one point, so I went somewhere else. Now, my wife has MS. She has a neurologist. This lady is an amazing doctor. She pushes natural healing, grounding, meditation, all the things that people think are crazy, right? If everybody listened to her in America, the world would be a better place. America would be a better place. Now, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. So what I've done in my own home is change my own diet, change the way I work out so that I can encourage my wife to eat better and my kids. I eat her diet now just to encourage her to be better because her neurologist said if she eats right, now the lesions won't get worse. Her MS won't progress. So we try to eat as good as we can. And at the same time, my kids are noticing it, and they're starting to eat better because I can't force them to do it. When you start forcing them to, they will rebel. Now, another thing she told us to do is to breathe, right? And when we meditate, we got to do it right. Now, I don't do this stuff for myself. I do it for my family. Okay, now, 91-year-old man named Dell. He works out at the rec center every morning with me now. Never wore a mask. We've talked about it plenty. He wears it where he needs to, but he never wore it into the locker room. The morning of the mandate, he came in. He took his mask off, set it on the bench, took his shirt off, did his thing. The energy in the room was bad immediately that morning. I don't know why. I tried talking my way through it with him, but the energy was just bad. Now, there's also signs in the locker room that says, wear undergarments when you sit on the benches. The same bench he just put his mask on, okay? In other words, people sit on these benches without undergarments and get them shitty, okay? Shitty benches where he just stepped it on. Okay, so I think that mandate endangered that man's life, the way he put it on that bench, okay? Because there's germs everywhere. The more we touch everything, all this, you know, it's just obvious to me, especially with kids. Now, this is a medical device, right? There is a proper way to use it. We do, you should use it in certain circumstances, but there's also side effects from wearing these masks, pimples. People have self-confidence issues when they have pimples and scarring eventually. My wife has scarring from when she had bad acne when she was a kid. This is causing some problems, the headaches, everything else that's causing problems. Now, for the masks, a friend of mine, Grandma, she's had heart problems. There again, I think Bates mentioned it, that she hasn't been able to get in for 9 months to get her heart problems checked because of everything that's going on. She did not go out of the house without a mask on. She rarely went outside the house. Now she went to the doctor last week. Then she went to Walgreens. There was a lady at Walgreens that was coughing, that was in front of her in line, and she got up to the front and she said that she had COVID, and there's no way she's going to quarantine because she doesn't have time and all this stuff. Now, that lady should have had a mask on. Now, Grandma, she got pneumonia. She knows exactly where she got it, right? She knows, so anyway, a friend of mine used to always tell me that you can't fix stupid. Funny enough that he got the polio vaccine and it was a gimp most of his life. Now, you can't fix stupid. You can't stop people from not wearing underwear when they sit on benches, okay? You can't stop this virus. We've known it's been coming for 9 months. Fauci predicted it, right? What did we do right that stopped it? Nothing. Nothing's going to stop it. It's finally here. All the preparations we've made to stop it didn't stop it. And it's not going to. Slowing the spread. We keep talking about slowing the spread and getting through this. If we're going to slow it, it's just going to prolong it and just take forever, isn't it? And you people will never let us go back to real life. Got some more, but that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Brianna Blum.
Bring the microphone down closer to you, please. There you go.
I am here for one simple reason. I want to ensure our freedom in the future for me and my family. A molecular biologist with degrees from Duke University, South Carolina Medical University, and MIT, Dr. Andrew Kaufman says, microbes may be associated with diseases, but they do not cause them. The cause is always something that has upset the natural order of nature, such as nutrient deficiencies, toxins, polluted air, filthy water, electromagnetic radiation, or even emotions of fear and despair. Viruses are exosomes, which are excretions of toxic cells. Exosomes are not transmittable. People are looking at exosomes and calling them viruses. The word virus comes from ancient Latin, which means noxious substance or poison. Exosomes are a response to illness, not the cause of illness. Exosomes facilitate healing by devouring toxic matter. People generally believe that exposure to pathogens is all that's required to become sick. This is simply not the case. Indeed, if it were the case, we'd all be dead because we come into contact with trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi every day. Our body can't survive without microorganisms. And if the microorganisms in our body are impaired, that results in more disease. If you want to take action on how to keep the community healthy and safe, diligently share what truly promotes health, like eating nutrient-dense foods like wild-caught sardines, pasture-raised beef liver, and drinking raw organic kombucha with no added sugar. Pay for Facebook ads reminding people to get outdoors for the fresh air and the vitamin D from the sun. Health billboards that put up promoting working out and going for walks daily. Instead, we see ads telling people to fear COVID, fear the virus, fear others who don't wear a mask, like a simple piece of cloth over your face is going to keep us healthy. This simply comes down to government overreach that won't stop at masks. I will stand against the government stripping us of our freedoms, liberties, rights, and livelihoods, all because of a fabricated pandemic. The bare face is the new yellow star of Nazi Germany, allowing discrimination, segregation, and fear of individuals. They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Give us just a second, Dwight, so we can get this back up, would you please?
That's okay. I have an administrative question first, and that is, before you start the clock, can you hear me okay? Because for when I'm sitting up there and there's a soft-spoken young lady standing down here, there's an echo effect, and I can't understand squat in what they're saying. So I'm hoping you can hear me okay and the audience can hear me okay. Is that so? Can you hear me fine? Okay. Let me know when you're ready. 100 West 7th Avenue, and I'm in Ward 4. Last week, medical professionals presented you with a host of data, mostly applicable to their hospital setting and their subjective, emotional justifications and pleas. Regarding masks, saying, these work. Really? Based on what legitimate, objective evidence did they draw that conclusion? They didn't provide any. What they didn't tell you was why COVID cases are increasing. Jeff Smith was the only one who caught that. The medical professionals don't know. There's no root cause analysis that exists to tell you that story. I saw on the news that they're using papper hoods and masks while they emotionally plead to you for mandated masks and restrictions. Regarding objective evidence that masks are ineffective, a gentleman has already cited a Denmark study. He stole my thunder. Anyway, the bottom line is it doesn't make a difference whether you wear a mask or not, and that study is considered the gold standard of studies now. It was done in April through June. And by the way, Councilor Jarks, last week when you were talking, you spent the whole time fidgeting with your mask, adjusting it, moving up and down, pulling it away from your face. You think that mask is really going to be effective? And by the way, yes, we'll still be friends. Also, something to consider, manufacturers and distributors are making millions for the sales of these masks, and they're laughing all the way to the bank, guys. Do you really think they're going to discourage the fear-mongering by the media and political despots? Nope. They're going to ride this cash cow as long as they can, folks. So today I went to Walmart to see what they're issuing to customers and selling. On the side of the box of the surgical mask provided to customers, it says, this product is for one-time use and cannot be reused. And there's little Jules. How many people are keeping and reusing these masks? Did you know Walmart is selling cloth masks that specifically state on the packaging, quote, not intended for antimicrobial or antiviral protection or related uses, or is for use such as infection prevention or reduction, not for a respiratory protective device, and therefore should not be used for particulate infiltration. But people are buying them to meet your mandate. So before you mandate masks, shouldn't you know and understand the properties of them? Look it up on OSHA and manufacturer websites. Even the CDC acknowledges that surgical and cloth masks are not effective against airborne virus particulates. Imposing hospital standards on the general public is not feasible or realistic. They're two separate worlds. Last week I mentioned public education for hand washing and personal hygiene. In the last few days I was at a restaurant, and when I went to the restroom, a man was at one of the urinals. When he finished his business, he left without washing his hands. I don't know what his health condition is, what germs he may have, or if he urinated on his hands, or if he even has syphilis. What I do know is he didn't wash his hands before he left, and he's spreading those germs around. You cite in your ordinance and resolution that's for the health and well-being of the committee. And Councilor Jarks, you said, I wear the mask because I care. So what about the mental anxiety and depression and potential suicide from adverse effects on businesses and employees that get laid off? Plus, you're imposing this just before Christmas and Thanksgiving, two of the biggest family get-together and shopping times of the year. Are you considering the unintended consequences of your actions? I really do believe you all sincerely care about the health and well-being of the community. But I caution you against imposing mandates and restrictions on subjective, irrelevant data and where a lack of factual information exists to support such a mandate. Think, investigate, and act with your minds, not with your hearts and emotions. I urge you to disapprove this ordinance and resolution. There will be unintended consequences. Remember, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Strong, and I'm here to speak out against the mandate. Now, normally I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I believe the mandate is a conspiracy by the City Council to improve attendance in meetings, so I think that's an option.
Believe me, that's not the case.
I do acknowledge the goodwill of those in favor of masks, people who've done great good for the city, who are smarter than I am, and who are good people are in favor of it. But people who are smarter than I am, who also have goodwill for this city, are also opposed to the mandate. There's reasons that you've heard and you'll hear some more. The Danish mask study, the places around the nation and the world that have instituted mask mandates and cases go up. The places around the United States right now where cases are rising, but yet they have higher than 80% mask usage. And there's many other things that could be said, like the pro-mask people recently did a study, and the pro-mask people recently did a study. They said, we can show that places with mask mandates have lower rates of hospitalization That study then had to be pulled because there is no difference between mask mandates. So that's the question. Question is not, is the hospital full? It is. I wish that the people in the hospital did not have the cases they're dealing with now. They do. But the question is, do mask mandates work? And here's part of the problem that I fear the city council is jumping into. You've issued the mandate on Tuesday. Well, I think we're in for a bit of good news. Everywhere around the world where we hit the first spike, like we are hitting right now, we're hitting the spike that the South hit in the summer, Texas and Georgia and Florida, that New York hit, in Italy hit, and Spain hit in March. We're hitting that spike. What happens is cases ramp up for a period of 4, 5, 6 weeks. They suddenly plateau, and then they drop off as suddenly as it spiked. We are not going to be different from anybody else that this has happened to. On Saturday, the week ending Saturday, we had the first week-to-week decreases in cases that we've had in Davison County for quite a long time. The data for Sunday's new case was the lowest number of new cases reported in 18 days. We are on the edge of the plateau where we will be dropping down shortly. So the question is, how long do you want the mandate for? When our cases drop off suddenly, and they will because we are not different from other people, the mask mandate will be credited. But the good numbers we've started to see recently for new cases is too soon for the mandate to have taken effect. So in 2 months, if our hospitalizations are much lower, as I suspect they will be, are you prepared to repeal the mandate then? And you know, if it's perceived that the mandate's effective, you'll have great pressure to keep the mandate for 2, 4, 6 months. And that's why you see places that have had mandates for 6 months or longer. Cases drop, masks work. Cases rise, you're not masking hard enough. That's the action that many governors have taken. We attempt to control what cannot be controlled. Cases keep rising. Well, family members can't go to other people's houses for Christmas. Cases keep rising. Well, grandparents can't go see newly born grandkids and other draconian restrictions, all in an attempt to control what cannot be controlled. Does the city council, should the city council, under threats of fines and imprisonment, take a side on this mask issue where people of goodwill, looking at the data very carefully, can come to conclusions that masks don't work? People of goodwill can come to that conclusion. The city council is saying, no, we will issue fines and imprisonment for not complying. And I think that's a step too far for the unity of the city that we need. And for a time like this, when cases are rising and people are under a lot of stress, I wish it would go down, but we cannot just try things just to try without a proven record of working. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jan Lambert. Dan Allen is my councilman. I'm not coming here with a bunch of statistics. All I'm saying is I was a dental assistant back in the 80s when HIV hit our country. We were told that we had to treat every patient as if they had HIV. That meant gloving, masking, disinfecting even more than we already were. This virus is worse. This virus has hit Mitchell. It's hit us hard. I have family that have had COVID. I have family that are healthcare workers. Those healthcare workers need our help. Like they said, Chris Lippert, they are overworked. They don't even get a lunch break. They hardly get a bathroom break. And here we are. All of these people are unmasked. and there's a mask mandate going on. They aren't 6 feet apart. So, I'm not going to take any more time, but I'm going to say again, we need to treat this as if everyone has it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Melissa Sigmund, I'm Ward 3. And I'm doing, okay, I'm sick of people saying that I don't care and that I'm not kind because I don't wear a mask. Every day, my job here is I run the housing assistance program for the city of Mitchell. I'm seeing every day the people that have lost their jobs, the business owners that have lost their businesses. They can't pay their rent and they can't pay their bills. I'm seeing the homeless people, and a lot of people don't know that Mitchell has such a horrible homeless problem, and we do. I see families that are living in their vehicles. And my job was hard enough before COVID. It's really hard now because I am bombarded every day with people that are laid off by the small businesses and actually some of the bigger businesses in town too. And they can't pay their bills. When I go to the store, I don't wear a mask. Now, I have gone into businesses where if they've requested it, and if I can do that and go in that business and get done what I need to do, I will do that. I cannot breathe in a mask. I have 2 inhalers that I have to use. Is part of that my fault? Absolutely. I am a smoker and I'm overweight. Those were my choices. I am very respectful to people that wear masks. I have yet to call anybody an idiot that has worn a mask. But boy, I tell you what, they sure don't have a problem calling me names. And when I'm in the store without a mask and somebody is coming near to me, I back up. Some of the people that are wearing masks, they think they're invincible. And they will walk right by me, or they just don't even pay attention. I'm more cautious than a lot of them, and I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying a lot of them. I am here to say that it should be a choice. This town cannot handle any more deaths, I agree. We don't want sick people. But our town cannot also handle losing all the businesses that keep this Mitchell. And that's what is happening. I don't know what to say. I'm talking on a personal level because it affects me every day, and I care. And I don't appreciate being told I don't care. Because I tell you, you come and do my job for a couple of days and tell me how you go home and how you feel when you can't help those people. And we have people from other states. I get calls every day from people from other states that want to move here. I'm sorry, I gotta just stop. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Evie DeWitt. I live in Ward 3. First of all, I want to thank you all for what you do and for your service to our city. I know that it's not easy and it's a huge responsibility. People say that masks are all about caring for our fellow man, right? We heard it last week. We've heard it all the time. We hear it everywhere. I would beg to differ. How is forcing everyone to wear a mask caring for the woman who was raped or assaulted by someone who held his hand over her mouth and now every time she leaves her home, she's reminded of it? How is caring for the kid? How is it caring for the kid who has sensory issues and can't stand to have something near his face? How is it caring for the guy who is claustrophobic and every time he puts something over his mouth, he literally feels like he cannot breathe? How is it caring for the person who gets headaches by the end of day, every single day after wearing one for work, so much so that she has a hard time even interacting with her family? That is not caring for people like that. Instead, this city is charging them a $500 fine or threatening time in jail for their first offense. Someone at last week's council meeting made the comment that we all know someone who has died from COVID. He was insinuating how much worse than other viruses that this is. I would like to say that yes, he's right. I do know people that have died from COVID. In fact, one was a young mother who was having a hard time with life the past few years, and then pandemic hit. Lockdowns, unrest, fear being shoved down our throats at every turn. She committed suicide. She didn't have COVID, but she died from it. The other was a friend's grandmother. She was locked away from everyone she knew and loved in a nursing home here in Mitchell. She was simply recovering from another medical issue until she could go back to her home when the pandemic and lockdowns hit. She told my friend that she would rather be dead than continue living like the prisoner she felt like she was in the nursing home, not even able to get a hug from her great grandkids, instead having to look at them through a glass window while wearing masks, as if the window wasn't quite enough protection. She passed away less than a month after speaking those words to her granddaughter. She died from COVID, but she didn't have it. My own grandpa, who is 97 years old, was in the hospital for an infection, which was not COVID. He just needed some simple IV antibiotics for several days. He was allowed only one visitor per day, not at a time, but per day, so of course the visitor was my grandma. On day 6, he told her very tearfully that he had no idea how in the world these people expect anyone to get well when they aren't allowed to see the people that they love. I had a friend who got COVID at an indoor sporting event where every single person was wearing a mask. And how are long-term care facilities getting COVID? Residents are locked in and employees are wearing masks. How is that even possible if masks are as effective as they're made out to be? We as a whole seem to be really quick to believe that what one person or one organization says we need to believe, which is interesting considering that our very own CDC makes recommendations that don't line up with the information they themselves have released. Their inconsistency throughout this entire pandemic has been astounding. I have read and researched on my own loads of information from loads of different experts, including the CDC and the WHO and many others, and guess what? There's tons of disagreement out there. So since all these so-called experts disagree, it falls to us, you and me, to individually research everything and decide for ourselves what is best. We live in a free country, and we have a responsibility to do our own research on everything. It's interesting to me that the first commenter quoted a known socialist, Saul Alinsky, to further his comments. I thought we lived in a free country. You know that Saul Alinsky says that the first thing that we need to do to move to a socialist society is control the healthcare, and then you can control the people? We aren't in a socialist society yet, but if you continue with this mask mandate, we're well on our way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kim Moore, and I actually don't live in town, but I've lived in Mitchell area, just a few miles east for a lot of years. And I'm a nurse, and I teach nurses, taught probably quite a few nurses that are here tonight. And I can tell you, Chris Lippert is an expert, and he is about the most caring individual you would find, as are any nurse that I have taught and works at Queen of Peace. They would not discriminate against anybody in this room who comes to their care. So I'm just here to be a voice a little bit for the nurse that is on the front line, who you won't see, there's not many of them here. And the reason is they're tired. They're to the point of breaking. And it's because they are being overworked, and we are going to be overwhelmed, and they are scared. But no, we are not fear-mongers, and it's just astounding, like Dr. Greenway said, the dichotomy that you feel. And it's scary, in fact. I'm going to read, someone sent me this, and it is very true. We, the healthcare workers, are not your frontliners anymore. We are your last line of defense. You, all the people in this room, it has shifted to you now, the community, and it's up to you. We can't win this war in the confines of the hospital because we need your help. And that's all these nurses and doctors and healthcare workers, teachers, frontline people throughout the state and our city want, is to be seen and heard. That's all any of us want, and we're listening to everybody. I'm just saying, you wouldn't call a plumber to pull your gallbladder out. Please listen to the overwhelming evidence that is out there. We have a train coming at us, and if we don't do something now, we are going to know a lot more than just a handful of people that have died from this disease. We had 42 that died in one day. The one day of COVID deaths is just a few shy, 48, that we lose on average 1 year of the flu season. And I would also ask you to think about the military. Dr. Margallo did a great job last week talking about the military and how, you give your life of service. And I would urge you to think about, how would you feel? I have a son that's in the military. I have a lot of my brothers. I have a strong family military background. How would you feel calling them up and saying, hey, I'm going to send you into Iraq, but you don't get any weapons. You do not get a gun. You just got to go in there with your clothes on your back. That's it. That's all you get. That's how these nurses are feeling. I don't care if we can't get mired down in the minuscule details. We have to do what is best for the most people. Even if the mask is only 70%, I'll take it. It's better than what we got right now. So in closing, I'd like to just read a little bit. I asked some of my students to give me, what's it like emotionally to be on the front lines. And this is what one of them shared: very mentally exhausting, knowing very well that this might be the last person this patient gets to talk to, or being the nurse that takes the patient off high-flow oxygen and knowing that they will die shortly. She feels like we're at war with no end in sight. Go 13 hours some days without eating and barely drinking just to check social media when you get off and see comments that people think it's a big joke. We need your help. We need an enforceable mandate, because guess what? I'm sorry, a consequence has to be tied to the mandate. You may not even have to enforce it. That's my prayer. Ask Brookings. The job of you guys is to research and find the best way to implement it. We have to do what's best for the majority. Thank you, and thank you for all your hard work and for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jackie Miskimmons. I'm a resident of Ward 1, but this evening I'm speaking on behalf of Vantage Point Solutions. You've each been provided with a letter. I also wish to read it aloud for the record. Dear Council members, we are writing in support of the existing face covering ordinance, the executive order, and ask that you do not take any steps to soften this ordinance. We feel that it is reasonable and not overly restrictive. As one of the largest private employers in Mitchell, having a safe environment for our staff and families is foundational to the great quality of life we enjoy. The current COVID-19 infection rate has pushed our healthcare system to critical levels, which significantly impacts the quality of life we have come to expect. We understand that there are valid arguments on both sides of the mask issue. It is clear that masks alone are not a cure for the pandemic. However, Davidson County has one of the highest infection rates per capita in the country, over 10 times higher than what most would consider severe. If wearing a face covering helps, even in a small way, it would be worth the small inconvenience it may cause. Eliminating or minimizing the existing ordinance would send the wrong message to our community. Your leadership on this issue will help us get back to normal as quickly as possible. Sincerely, Larry Thompson, CEO, and Chad Glanzer, President of Vantage Point Solutions. I would now like to take a step back and instead of speaking on behalf of Vantage Point, speak on behalf of myself and my family. By both training and trade, I work in marketing and communications. So I spend a lot of time thinking about the messages we send and the messages that we receive. And as people, we've all had an experience where what I said isn't what you heard, or vice versa. What you said is, don't make a government mandate. What I heard was, I don't care about your health. What I said was, mandate masks for health care. And what you heard was, the government is turning socialist. What we say and what others hear don't always align perfectly. That is why in an environment that is polarized, like this one, where it's us versus them and it's maskers versus non-maskers, in those environments especially, clarity is king. Clarity is critical. As my good friend and former boss, Brian Heisel, used to say often, yes and no are easy, but I can't work with maybe. Suggestions are not adequate clarity. So tonight you will vote on an ordinance that is clear or a resolution that is a suggestion and that is less clear. So while you will say yay or nay, what we will hear is the extent to which you trust and support our healthcare community, our business community, and the public health of the public you represent. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Troy Magnuson. I live in Ward 1, proudly for the last 50 years. I know each and every one of you on the City Council. I consider you all my friends. I received a call last night from a member of this council to ask me to come and speak tonight after that person saw a post I put on Facebook. I might get a little emotional, but in the last week and a half, I've lost 10 plus people from my circle of friends to COVID. How many other people in this building right now can stand up, raise their arm, and say they were a pallbearer for somebody in the last week? Not only did I serve as a pallbearer, I was part of the color guard for this gentleman. I've known that man since I was 4 years old. Wearing a mask is not easy for me. My glasses fog up. No big deal. Messes with my hearing aids. Okay, I can live with that. I'm asthmatic, have a hard time breathing. That's where the problem comes from. Thankfully, my boss gave me, finally, something I found that would work. A tie-on mask, just like what the doctors wear. Dr. Lippert, or Chris, and Dr. Campbell, Dr. Greenway, my very dear friend, Dr. Margallo, thank you for your services. If they can wear a mask each and every day, So can we. As I said in my post, get over your vanity, take care of yourself. I live above my parents. I'm there to take care of them. My father's 85 years old, and he's a lung cancer survivor. My mother's 82 with macular degeneration. I run all their errands, I take them to the doctor, I do whatever I can for them. I cannot take this crap home. And I work with the public, not just from Mitchell. For 35 years, I've worked with the public from all over the country and world. I'm nervous. I'm tired. I'm tired of worrying about my parents, of getting this. I'm tired of losing friends. I'm really afraid of getting it myself. So if you can't wear a mask, I don't understand. It's beyond me. As Dr. Margallo said at the last meeting, if I can save one life, I'm going to add to that. I've done the right thing. And this stuff hurts. It's going to hurt more because for the first time in 20 plus years, I'm not going to be down at the Masonic Lodge cooking Christmas Day dinner. Because we cannot, in good conscience, put volunteers and our members and their families in harm's way. We had talked about doing drive-up and delivery. Sure, we might have been able to pull it off, but the amount of people that were going to have to be there and not knowing who and where they had been, who they had been around and where they were from, there's just no safe way to do it. My family has decided that this year, instead of having a big Thanksgiving dinner, we split it up. Last night, I made an Italian dinner for my sister, brother-in-law, mom and dad, and my niece, and my oldest brother. Thursday, I'll be cooking a turkey for my brother, sister, mom, and dad, and I. You can do this. Just keep it small. Use your head and continue to live your life. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Foster with Ward 4 and the depot also. I'm speaking also for my daughter, who's my partner. We started last Tuesday following the mandate with the masks. We're continuing to do so. Whatever the council decides, we will abide by that. I would prefer the resolution, but we will continue with our people wearing masks. And neither one of that restrictive for people that sit down with our type of business. Sit down once they sit down, masks. If they're actively eating, drinking, that kind of thing, they don't have to wear them. I was in Minnesota, just a side note, I was in Minnesota at the end of July when that mandate came down for restaurants. It's exactly the same thing. And Minnesota's had nothing but trouble ever since. I don't know how to explain that. I can tell you that I'm a survivor. My daughter, myself, my son. 3 people in the depot because we oftentimes work closely together. All have had it 2 or 3 weeks out from when we were all out of quarantine and so on and so forth. We didn't pass it along to our other people. I have 35, 36 people working for me. There's nobody else in the building that got it. I hired a kid last week. He ended up with it, got it from somewhere else. We weren't wearing masks. We were wearing masks at Walmart, Menards, whatever. So I understand the sentiment. I understand both ways. I firmly do. And we will continue to do this as the council wishes. We would prefer the resolution if we're going to have something. But regardless, it's not, either one isn't going to affect us because we're going to follow the rules. We're going to do the right thing. I came here tonight not to just talk about the ramifications or the health care issues and that kind of thing. I want to give you some highlights or lowlights of what happens when we do something like this. Last Tuesday, our business turned south. I mean, it wasn't a gentle curve, it just dropped off to nothing. Every day since last Tuesday, it's been a 40 to 45% decrease in our sales. I'm not pulling any punches. I have always been honest with all of you. You know who I am. I'm telling you the cold, hard truth. I don't have anywhere else to save this money. I've got to do it somehow. I have fixed expenses. My power bill doesn't go down 40% because I lost volume. It's still the same. The only thing I can do is cut my payroll and hurt the very people that take care of us as a business. And we've had to cut it. 40% or better. What does that do? It cuts jobs, it cuts income, and somebody else said it, Mr. Stadler said it earlier, it's right at Christmas on top of it all. These people have young children. How do we survive with that? There's no one, and my point is, there's no one to back us up. There's no federal help, there's no state help, and certainly, obviously, the city can't help us. I want to tell you another part of this equation that really fries me is we've been trying to apply for the state $400 million. Try it. Just try it once. It's a nightmare. There's better people out there than we are, apparently, and we've got ELO working on it. We've got bookkeepers and so on and so forth. Anyway, it's difficult at best, and it would be easier for me to swim with a school of sharks, great whites, than to try and get that money, to try and get some help for my employees. Utilities, that kind of thing, all of that stuff stays the same. It's more important than ever now to support your local businesses, whether it be supplies for the city, whether it be our business, whatever it is, gift cards, that kind of thing. You need to get out and you need to support us. And one more thing, health care. I got a letter, I'm sorry, I got a letter, this is very important. Health care is not saying anything about vitamins, but yet when you get the disease, that's the first thing they do is they send out a list of vitamins that you should take. Why can't they do that ahead of time? Nobody's talking about vitamins. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Hello, everyone. My name's Amanda Millen. I'd want to start off saying thank you, everyone. We appreciate you all. Thank you to the healthcare workers, the doctors, the healthcare workers. Thank you, all the nurses. I personally have a lot of friends that are nurses and doctors, and I appreciate you guys more than anything. We all do. We always have. But I want to start off saying, also after that, I also own a small business here in town. My co-owner, one of them, is up there, Teresa Gillen. We just started the Hotspot Infrared Fitness Studio in town. I'm also a hairstylist here in town, so I'm speaking on a small business owner right here. Small businesses are the backbone to our community. That is what makes Mitchell Mitchell. That's what makes Mitchell go round, right? We need income, we need jobs, we need revenue. That is the truth behind it. I'm sorry that people are getting sick. I have one of the biggest hearts. I don't want anyone to ever get sick, have any illnesses, viruses, or diseases. I'm a huge promoter in self-care, self-health, and self-responsibility. Going back to that, our fitness studio has been open for 2 weeks. It's the infrared fitness studio. So if you come into it, the infrared heat helps produce white blood cells that helps fight off illnesses, bacteria, disease, all things, including coronavirus. We all have to take personal responsibility in our own health. Again, vitamins, nutrition, sleep. Maybe people need, all of these things taken apart. So it goes back to personal responsibility, making those choices for yourself. At this time last year, I had a friend that had cancer. She didn't choose that. She didn't want that. But unfortunately, she chose to maybe socially distance, stay home, not go to places that she would be exposed to different viruses or illnesses. This was even before coronavirus is a thing, because I think people keep forgetting that there are things like influenza still going on and other things. Also, most people, and I guess I can't, there's all statistics. We can all pull up statistics for masks, against masks. Again, I'm not saying I'm for or against. If you want to wear a mask, I think that's a personal preference. If you feel comfortable or not comfortable, it's whatever's best for you and your health and your family. But a lot of people that are maybe dying or passing away from it have a 2.5, at least 2.5 other conditions that are playing effect into that. So underlying health conditions, maybe that's diabetes, obesity, heart disease. And I think it all stems back to, this is a big eye-opener for all of us, for America, for the world, that we all have to take personal responsibility for our health. Now, as a small business, this is affecting us. If we have to mandate masks in our business, first of all, it's 104 degrees in that room. You cannot work out with a mask on when it's 104 degrees. It's not safe. You can't breathe. Your oxygen is lower. Again, the infrared heat is what is the whole thing behind our business. Like, that is why to detox, to sweat, all of the things that you're getting from that beneficial, but also if we social distance, we are cutting half of our revenue out right there. Who's paying our rent? Who's paying all of the things that we still have to pay? And we're trying to bring something good to the community to help everyone, to make them healthier mentally and physically. No one talks about mental health here. No one talks about the depression, the anxiety, the suicide rate that's up. Some people don't have huge, big businesses that are thriving and surviving during the shutdowns. Yes, I know that in Mitchell we have a few big names and businesses that bring so much money and revenue, and thank you, I appreciate that. But then there's also the little businesses. Like, I'm a hairstylist, speaking for all the hairstylists. If we shut down, if we have mask mandates, we lose clients because they are deciding, well, I don't want to go there because they're mandating me to wear a mask. And that's their choice, right? We're not essential. But then I don't get paid if I don't have someone in my chair. The person next to me maybe they can't pay their rent. Maybe they can't pay their health insurance. They aren't getting paychecks, manual labor jobs. It's a reality. The world still needs to have some function to it, and taking out politics and the fear and all of that behind that, because I don't even want to get into that tonight. I believe that one thing, the government, the mayors, who it may be.
That's your time, so wrap it up.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Again, thank you.
All right, I'm Debbie Emmy. I'm Ward 2. A majority of you have met me when I ran against McCardle. Yeah, I haven't left. My family and I chose to live here many years ago. I wasn't born and raised here, but we chose to make this our home. Okay, as you see, I had walked in with my family without a mask. I have issues. I have medical conditions. Believe me, don't believe me, I don't care. I have medical backing, on my phone actually, to back what I say. I don't just throw things around. I do my research, I look into it. You know, I actually was called a lot of names. I had passed around a petition for those that are against masks, whether it be personal choices, whether it be medical. Same goes for those who wanted the masks. Guess who got attacked the most? Guess who got called selfish? And you all have probably seen my name. I am out there day in, day out, trying to get youth involved, trying to keep them out of trouble, because I do see the repetitiveness of welfare. I see it day in, day out. That's my job. You know how many people have called me in the last 2 weeks because they didn't know who else to call because they were thinking about suicide? I can't even count. They don't know who to reach out to. They're afraid of getting picked on, prodded on, made fun of. They call me because I've spoke out against this, because I knew what this was going to do. I have to admit, on Thursday, I actually did have a breakdown myself. Luckily, I knew who to call. I knew who to get a hold of. In the beginning, yes, I was scared to believe Holy Hannah. I missed out on saying goodbye to my grandmother because I was so scared. I am overweight, I have asthma, and since this all has started, I personally have lost 80 pounds. I have tried making this change, but guess what? Wearing those masks makes me feel like I am getting choked out every single time. And I know I am not the only one. I am speaking for those who literally cannot come up here and speak, for fear of retribution, or they just cannot speak in front of anybody. I will continue doing what I'm doing. I'm going to sit here and continue striving to help keep kids involved. You should have seen it. We had our Halloween party for Cub Scouts out at the fairgrounds. Seeing those kids laugh and play and be together without masks. Yes, we did have some that wore masks. Did they get picked on? No. Were they made fun of? No. Everyone was playing together and laughing. Just remember, a majority of the time people would rather die by living than to die living in fear. What are these people doing in our healthcare system? They can go out and they can live their lives, the employees can. My husband just lost his great aunt. She lost her will to live, she quit eating, and she passed away last week. I've lost friends, I've lost family members, not only to COVID, with COVID, but to suicide.
Okay, that's your time, so wrap it up, please.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amber Adrian. I'm in Ward 3. I just want to say before I start that I really appreciate this dialogue. I really appreciate what was said at the beginning. I also find myself regularly frustrated with the environment in our nation and our inability to talk civilly about things and disagree and be rational. And I also just want to say that This is obviously really hard. As a highly empathetic person, have been very affected by everything that's been said so far, even if it's people who I don't see things the way that they see. So I appreciate this dialogue. I'm here primarily as a mother of 2 young children, ages 2 and 4, and tonight I'd like to bring to light an aspect of masks that some of you perhaps haven't considered. Connection with other people is what makes life meaningful. I don't have to tell anybody that. Half of your face being covered makes connecting with other people really hard. We can't hear each other. Nonverbal cues, which make up a huge part of communication, are very limited. Sometimes we can't even recognize each other. I don't know if that's happened to anybody, but someone was trying to talk with me the other day, and I literally didn't know who they were because of the mask. And you might think this is a small thing or maybe some like crazy hippie talk, but this is my perspective as an intentional parent and someone who values mental and emotional health just as much as physical health. I felt very early on that I will not only not put masks on my very young children, but I will also not expose them to a bunch of people wearing masks. They understand what the mask is for and can make sense of some people wearing them here and there. But if we're all wearing them, it's a different story. Young kids absorb things deeply and are learning all the time from their environment, and their ability to connect with and learn from those around them is severely hindered when everyone is masked. I also believe the visual of every person in a space with half their faces covered is scary and disorienting for young kids, whether they can express it or not. My husband and I have put this belief of ours into practice. We've been attending my parents' country church for the last several months because our beloved church here in town is very pro-mask. I know they're doing what they're doing because they believe that it's what's required to show that we care for other people, as has been mentioned many times. But because I care deeply about my kids' well-being, I can't in good conscience take them into that space. I could elaborate, but I'll keep this brief. Seeing everyone around them in masks is detrimental to the optimal development of very young children. To be clear, I'm not anti-mask. I'm a thoughtful citizen and neighbor and will gladly inconvenience myself to help someone else. And I have worn a mask in certain circumstances during this time. I also express concern for healthcare workers. My brother and sister-in-law both work at the hospital. I simply don't believe that mandating everyone to cover up their faces will truly help us get through this. I believe the way that we'll get through this is by curbing the overly simplistic, divisive attitudes around masks and trusting that everyone wants good outcomes and is doing what makes sense for their own risk tolerance and specific situations. This is by far not the only issue I have with the mask debate, but it's a big one for me. For the sake of our humanity, for the sake of the young humans in this community who are just learning to connect and communicate, I stand opposed to a citywide mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonah Hanemichael, and my dad said I'm from Ward 1, so that's where I'm from. I guess I'm here to talk against the mask mandate, and you can call me out and you can call me selfish because I am 20 years old. I'm probably the youngest person that has the balls to come stand up here and talk, but I speak on behalf of people like my mother, who wears a mask all day at school. She's a teacher, and she comes home, and when she wants to go out to the store and doesn't wear her mask, and people persecute her because she makes a decision for herself. She maintains social distancing and all these other guidelines. Yet, when I or my mother go out and we see somebody wearing a mask, do we berate them? No. It's always the ones that call for the mask mandate. And I think I speak for everybody that is here speaking against the mask mandate. We do not think masks need to be gotten rid of. We think if you want to wear your mask, wear your mask. But do not force that on the people that see the studies that say masks don't work. You want to quote scientists and doctors. What about the 50,000 scientists and doctors over the whole United States and other countries that have said masks don't work, or masks are equally effective as ineffective? We've quoted the Danish study already. That's a great one. My other question, and I guess this is to the City Council, when Mayor Everson introduced this mandate, immediate effective, he allowed for net gaiters and various other cloth face coverings. The city council opposed getting rid of those. It needs to be medical masks. What about the people that can't afford them? Are you going to stand in front of every business and hand them out? How do you pay for that? With my money? With my taxpayer money? How do you mandate these businesses? Shouldn't it be their choice? Are you going to make them pay to hand out masks, make them take their money that they're already losing to hand out masks to make sure that everybody's following this order? All I want to say is that I didn't have a mask before this. I had to go look for one. I found one. I had to go buy one. How do I go buy one if I can't walk into a store without a mask? Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a defining moment for Mitchell, and it's appropriate we're at this venue where there have been so many defining moments.
Could you speak a little closer to the microphone, please?
Yes. This is is that better?
Yeah.
This is a defining moment for Mitchell and our community, and it's appropriate we're in this venue because there have been so many defining moments here over the years. My name is Matthias Corzan. I live in Ward 2 with my family. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Let me start by saying that despite having opposing opinions on masks and the role of government, I think perhaps we all agree on one thing this evening, and that is that all of us want the very best outcomes for our families and our community. Like most of us here tonight, I have elderly neighbors with pre-existing conditions. One delivers Meals on Wheels to shut-ins. The other volunteers every Friday at the Mitchell Food Pantry. These people matter. They have a role in our community. They have an impact on our community. To imply, as some have done during this debate, no matter how subtle the suggestion, that for the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions, dying from COVID-19 is somehow inevitable and therefore justifies not wearing a mask is amoral and it's dangerous. No one in this community is expendable. Times of crisis bring out the worst in some people. We've seen the meltdowns on social media of adults throwing temper tantrums over being asked to wear a mask. What's worse, our children and grandchildren have also seen this selfishness. The government at both the federal and state level has refused to take responsibility in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. They have failed the leadership test. We've heard politicians lie about the virus, mock masks, and support superstition over science. There has been a dereliction of duty. The oldest justification for government is as protector. Elected officials take an oath of office that translates into a social contract, a sacred obligation. Mr. Mayor, council members, please protect our community, even if it means protecting us from ourselves. This is a defining moment for Mitchell. We cannot wait until January 20, when a new administration in the White House enacts a nationwide mask mandate. COVID-19 presents an imminent threat to our families and our community. This is urgent. We must act now. You have the power to save lives. Please continue to mandate masks in Mitchell as part of a citywide ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sonia Vanderdwick. I live out in Mitchell Township. I'm going to talk tonight about some legal things, but first I want to talk a little bit about, you probably already all know, I used to be a critical care nurse, and I've had quite a few people shame at me thinking that I don't care about the healthcare community, and I actually find that very disturbing, mainly because of my social media posts and that I support freedom and not a mask mandate. I've never said I'm against masks. If you want to wear one, you can. In fact, I used to work with cancer patients at the Mayo Clinic, and we would definitely encourage them when they're out and about to wear like an N95 or whatever to protect themselves from others. So I commend all the healthcare workers. They are working terribly hard, but to think our simple Band-Aid is putting a mask on when we've never done this before for any virus is being quite naive. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit here. Oh, first, I'm sorry. I want to thank you all for all your service that you do, and I appreciate your time because I know this is a long meeting as well. I feel like we're at a crossroads in our country. The whole pandemic has proven to be a huge power grab in some states and cities more than others. Our governor, however, has stood to try and secure our God-given rights and constitutional rights, which safeguards our right to health freedom. Now we see kind of an overreach of our government here. We are born with certain God-given rights, and the U.S. Constitution has been created to prevent the overreach of government to protect our freedom. When a mask mandate was instituted last week, the people and their voices were ignored, especially businesses who had to scramble to figure out how do they proceed. The First Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to the petition of the government for a redress of grievances. This community has denied those rights. The South Dakota Constitution, Article 6, Bill of Rights, Section 1, inherent rights state all men are born equally free and independent and have certain inherent rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty, of acquiring and protecting property in pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers in the consent of the governed. Are we all equally free if our government denies these rights? If a person wishes to breathe normally and not wear a face covering, you are denying them their right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. When a business is now told that they must deny entry into their businesses by a barefaced person, they are violating the South Dakota U.S. Constitution and the Federal Civil Rights Law, Section 11, Title 11, Section 2000, which states, all persons shall be entitled to the full and equal enjoyment of goods, services, facilities, advantages, and accommodations of any place of public accommodation as defined in this section without discrimination on the ground of race, color, religion, or national origin. As a result, businesses and the city would be violating the rights to public accommodations. There is no statutory law that requires you, your employees, or your patrons to wear masks. To refuse entry to an establishment which is open to the public is restricting the free movement of an individual and engaging in false imprisonment. I can go on. We have the U.S. Title 52 Civil Rights Act of 1964, unlawful to discriminate in the place of public accommodations, and that covers that as well. Furthermore, it is unlawful to enforce the 6 feet separation as it restricts the movement of individuals. Regulations are laws that are created through an administrative law, making procedure by departments and agencies to fulfill and carry out statutory law. Again, no laws are on the books that require masks, social distancing, and other protocols. Violating at the above-mentioned laws while concealing your identity with a face covering may elevate the criminal charges against a business for denying entry to any person in this jurisdiction. The guidelines set forth by the CDC and the Department of Health are simply guidelines and not laws. This mandate is not a law. The legislature is the only entity that can make laws. A mask is considered a medical device. By the city mandating people to wear one is a violation of that law. It violates South Dakota Codified Law, Section 36-4-8, which states, practice of medicine without a license, certificate, or permit as a misdemeanor. Any person who practices medicine, osteopathy, or any of the branches thereof without a license, certificate, or permit issued by the board is guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. So is the City Council and the Mayor now practicing medicine? We all need to have the right to make our own health decisions. That's all we want here. Even when a healthcare practitioner makes a recommendation, we have a free will to choose. That is part of informed consent. We all want a healthy community, but we cannot sacrifice the rights of others for the safety of the 1%. As Ben Franklin said, Freedom is not a gift bestowed on us by other men, but a right that belongs to us by the laws of God and nature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whew, I need a deep breath after that. Mitchell City Council, Mayor, thanks for letting us be here tonight to speak our opinions and our best professional opinion on the situation. My name is Nathel Cody, and I live in Ward 4 with my family. I proudly served my country in the armed forces for over 10 years, and I have been working for Avera for 15. In both positions, I have learned what it's like to make great sacrifice for the greater good, putting others' health and safety before my own. I know you've heard many different opinions from different healthcare providers and community members over the last couple of weeks. And home health is one of the areas greatly affected by the pandemic, and I'd like to share with you something you may not have heard yet. I currently manage the Avera at-home agency here in town. I manage over 40 employees who care for over 300 patients, providing many different types of home care services, including hospice. We strongly support the mask mandate and hope that tonight it is not weakened. During this pandemic, we're keeping patients out of the hospital and the emergency rooms here in town by providing patients with care at home. One way is by our new Avera COVID Care Transitions program, which provides patients with the support they need to manage their care at home by getting daily phone calls from nurses. Some of them receive a home remote monitoring system, oxygen, and pulse oximeters to be able to monitor their own oxygen levels. Many of these people should be in the hospital. Normally they probably would be. But in the case we're in right now, we do not have room for them. Only the sickest of the sick are in the hospital and have a bed with a nurse to care for them. Our team is able to, by providing these services, are able to preserve precious hospital resources. Without the program and the other high-quality home care and hospice services that my team provides, the hospitals would be overwhelmed with patients who have no other option. As of this morning, our COVID Care Transitions program had over 1,300 patients. That is 1,300 patients that without this program would be in a facility, in a hospital. We don't have room for them. The state of South Dakota doesn't have room for them. Staffing is a challenge, just as in any other area of healthcare at the moment. My team deals almost daily with staff unable to work due to COVID, symptomatic or positive. My team members are working over 60 hours a week, and they still can't keep up. They're caring for patients day in and day out at the end of a 12, 13, 14, 15-hour day, knowing that what they did just wasn't even enough. And yet they get up and do it all over again, day after day. We know masks alone are not the cure. They're not the cure-all. They're not going to fix this, as many of you have heard tonight from everybody here. But it's an important piece of the puzzle. If we can at least slow the spread, if you're wearing a mask, in addition to social distancing and proper hand hygiene, you're helping to slow it down. You're helping us to get a handle on things before the vaccine and other medications may arrive to help. Even if you don't believe in masks, if you don't believe a mask works, please, wearing it as a demonstration of support for those working tirelessly and sacrificing everything we have for you means a lot. In the last 72 hours, my team has lost 5 patients to COVID, all of them on hospice, that may or may not needed that service prior to COVID. Nobody knows. Just like they said here tonight, we can't say who would or would not have needed the services or the hospital bed or died with or without COVID. We don't know. Nobody knows the answer to that. All we're asking is for a little bit of support tonight that the mask ordinance is not weakened, at least for a few more weeks to a month until we can get a better handle on things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Pitts, Ward 4. I first want to say thank you to the council and to the mayor for the leadership courage it took to put together the original ordinance. We have certainly tried not wearing masks for a long time, since the start of COVID. We've tried suggestions, the states recommended them. I can tell you from my dealings with Pitt's Design Build and with WM Nutrition in town, we might get 10% of the people wearing masks based on a suggestion or a recommendation. Since the ordinance has come into place, at WM Nutrition we're probably seeing about a 95% rating of people, or amount of people wearing masks. At my business at Pitt's Design Build, we're close to 100%, and it is easier to enforce. I originally, personally, when COVID started, automatically lynched onto the personal freedom thought process. And I completely respect everyone's voice that have spoken up today. I think everyone's trying to look out for the best for their community, and I applaud that. What scares me a little bit, just from personal experience, is where this virus is going. And even though I may wear a mask, it only helps me so much. It only helps me, according to the CDC, about 50%. That's pretty good. But I also protect others up to 50 to 70%. And that's based on the www.cdc.gov/coronavirus/2019-ncov/more/masking-science, updated November 20th, 2020. This works the best when we go at it from a community perspective. It only is so effective when you're doing it individually, or you're doing it 10%. My biggest motivator in all of this is my son. In March of last year, when the school shut down, he was a kindergartner, and he doesn't know how to read yet. He's getting better at it. He's a first grader now. But unfortunately, learning at school or online was pretty disastrous for him. He couldn't read the instructions of what he was supposed to do. And my wife is a teacher, so she's trying to teach online. So trying to teach your own kids, teach the students that, the 100 students that she teaches on a daily basis, and me trying to work all at the same time, I could see developmental loss in my own child. I would do anything to help my kid read. And I can see how the increasing cases that are coming through the city is starting to move into the school districts, even though they have a mask mandate. They're still doing pretty well. But from my own experience, I had COVID a week ago. Finished up my quarantine period, and that's why I was able to be here tonight rather than a week ago. But I saw the impacts of how just my individual case could have put my wife, my kids, my coworkers at risk. Thankfully, I was wearing a mask, and I was able to minimize those negative impacts. But when we talk about freedoms, and this is ultimately why I changed my mind on how, personal freedom, but we've got to think about the personal freedoms of the people who get COVID and who die from COVID. Their freedom of life is now lost, and they don't necessarily know whether it came from somebody with a mask or without, but their life is now gone. So I guess from that perspective, I support and hope you all will approve the mandate to keep kids learning, to keep teachers teaching, to keep businesses going, because there's only so many employees in a lot of small businesses, and if they go down, they go down. Overall, I hope the health of the community can stay strong. And thanks for everybody's input tonight. It's been good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sean Rummel. I'm in Ward 4. Early November, I tested positive for COVID. My symptoms were relatively minor, presumably due to my age. I do not want to minimize COVID based on my experience, as I know it affects everyone different, especially those that are most vulnerable. I understand that for me, it wasn't life-threatening, but as a carrier, I could have spread it to others for which it would be. After my initial symptoms, I immediately got tested and minimized my spread to the best of my abilities. I was responsible. Others may not be, due to circumstances, being asymptomatic, or possibly out of pure stubbornness. Going forward, I don't know if there's going to be long-term effects, and that could be kind of scary. I still can't smell anything, and it's been 4 weeks. That's not normal. The each individual should have a choice argument doesn't really hold up. One party wearing a mask primarily helps those around them. I chose to wear a mask to protect others when those around me did not. Me wearing a mask prevented me from spreading COVID when I was unaware I had it. I did not receive that same luxury from others who were likely unaware that they were sick. I find it highly ironic that those pushing the hardest against wearing masks are actually the safest among us, since us mask wearers are taking necessary steps to protect them. The act of suggesting masks does not work, and peer pressure is real. It starts with one person lowering their mask below the nose, another follows. This ultimately leads to a store full of people holding their masks by their waists, because that's what everyone else is doing. Let this mandate be the scapegoat for those that are uneasy about wearing masks. If everyone is doing it, the pressure to take off the mask is eliminated. We all know this isn't permanent. I am asking that you enact the citywide mask mandate as originally requested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, frontline workers, my name is Cindy Beach. I'm the manager of the social quarters and special events at the Moose Lodge. Like John Foster says, our business has really decreased. We were booked pretty much all year for 1 to 3 events every weekend this year. In November, we had 1. Very few months did we have others. I do think that's a good thing for us, but again, we have employees that are not getting hours, that are quitting. The Moose is very well known for community service, donating to activities and that, which not having an income coming in, it's hard to do. We definitely will follow all rules, policies. My concern is I have not, personally, I have hardly went any place this year. You can count on my hands how many places I've went in the town of Mitchell, except for work. I did get COVID. I was asymptomatic. I got tested for another reason, medical reason. I did give COVID to my mother, who is 86 years old. And I can tell you every morning I could hardly breathe when I called her to see it, make sure she was okay. I just don't know if the mask mandate is the correct thing. I found by Wednesday in our business, it was like people were defying it. The way they treat the employees, they don't have to do it. My concern is I don't think you're going to be able to control it as well as you think. So this week I decided, I went to 3 to 4 different businesses every day in the past 5 days. People are not following it now, and I know it's not because they don't know. People are not wearing masks correctly. You see some masks that are so dirty, I think they've worn them for the past 10 months. 4th of them are wearing them below their nose, below their mouth. This is not helping the situation. I can't imagine, like I say, what the frontline workers are going through right now. I'm just not sure how this mandate is really going to be able to help us out, because I think we're going to have a lot of problems. having people obey it. I would hope that most people would be washing their hands, sanitizing, wearing masks. But I think we need to teach people they need to take care of each other. And I just don't know if the mandate will really do that as much as we would hope it would. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dave Mensch. I'm pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist Church here in town. I actually didn't come here to say anything. I came to have the opening prayer, but apparently I misunderstood the schedule. But this has been a divisive issue, as we all know. One thing I wanted to say, I'm no scientist, but I do know that one of the pathways for the virus is in the eyes, shields, glasses, those kinds of things. They're also necessary to protect us from it. My main concern, and I wanted to also say, the ministerial bunch, we did some interaction with through email, and we're all divided, straight down the middle on this thing, to wear a mask or not. My greatest concern, I think, is, and it's already been mentioned, government overreach and civil liberties and religious rights, religious liberties, and how they're affected. We see some of the extremes going on in Oregon. My daughter and her family lived there, and how this overreach, there can be no end of it. I don't envy this council. I do pray for this council. One other concern, and I guess the last thing I'll say, is do we really want to criminalize part of our citizenship over this issue? And that is something that I think we really need to take into consideration. I know that you do. And again, you're in my prayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this second opportunity to speak in front of you, ladies and gentlemen. It is precisely the intent and the purpose of this little mask is to promote health, to prevent public health crisis, and to prevent further economic catastrophic impact. If we save people, we keep them healthy, there's no need for lockdowns. There's no need for our schools to be closed. Thank you for taking my calls, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of those guys who called you. And I am sure you have, and I agree. But I also get calls anytime during the day, 48 hours, the entire week. I just cannot tell you how many calls of different categories. I cannot even remember how many death certificates I signed the last few days. Friends of mine, patients, a relative of mine died because of COVID. Ladies and gentlemen, the virus is real. It's not a fantasy. It's deadly, and it's surging out of control. Scared? Yes, I'm scared. I was scared when I was born, World War II, and hearing the explosions of the bomb. I was scared when there's typhoons, earthquakes, driving in a blizzard. I'm scared for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm scared for my relatives. I'm scared for everybody. I'm scared for myself. Without wearing masks, it is projected, according to the studies at the University of Washington published just last week, 2 weeks ago, that if we don't do this, masking universally, there will be 511 deaths secondary to COVID. If only 95% will follow the mandate, it will save about 130,000 people. If 85% follow, it will save 95,800 people. That is a lot of people. And I'll say it again. One death is too many. I've seen it. I've seen it. I cry with them. Today I've spoken to several of them, face to face. Now, for the good news, Mr. Mayor, first of all, I will tell you that there's no cure for any virus, but there are some encouraging news. The vaccination phase 3, we have 3 companies that would put out and approve an emergency use, and this is encouraging. There are some medications that would help the mortality rates. That's encouraging. The antivirus, remdesivir, monoclonal antibodies, convalescent plasma. That's encouraging. So, if that is true, this is going to be temporary. Although Dr. Fauci said, or Dr. Chichi, it's me, that we should still follow the mandate because it's still there, it's in the air. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, I appeal to your sense of justice and responsibility to help us, to help you save lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Penny Overweg, and I am from Ward 2. Sonia Van Erdwerk and I and myself, we did put together a petition, and I would like to just read the letter for you. It has been emailed to all of you as well, and I believe there's copies right there on the table if you wanted to see the hard copies of it. I'm not sure if it was passed around, but I think it's in the front right next to, right there.
Cindy, can you hand that to Mr. Allen?
I'm not sure if that's it, but I thought there were copies made. But dear Mitchell City Council, we who live, work, worship, and have invested into the community of Mitchell, South Dakota are opposed to a citywide mask mandate in our community. We ask the Mitchell City Council to immediately rescind the executive order for citywide mask mandates and enact no other such power overreach. Healthcare is not the jurisdiction of the City Council. You are not a licensed doctor and cannot give medical advice. If a mask affects the health of an individual in any way, it is considered a medical intervention device. Enacting a one-size-fits-all mandate neglects the specific health needs of the individual and is in violation of the South Dakota Constitution, U.S. Constitution, the First and Fourth Amendments, federal civil rights law, and South Dakota civil rights laws. On the basis of health freedom, we stand in support of the Great Barrington Declaration, signed by 638,927 concerned citizens, 12,115 medical and public health scientists, and 35,238 medical practitioners and their stance that coronavirus mitigation be focused on protecting the vulnerable and encouraging the healthy resume normal life. The Great Barrington Declaration can be viewed at, and there's a link on the paper and in your emails, and the declaration states, those who are not vulnerable should immediately be allowed to resume life as normal. Simple hygiene measures such as hand washing and staying home when sick should be practiced by everyone to reduce herd immunity threshold. Schools and universities should be open for in-person teaching. Extracurricular activities such as sports should be resumed. Young, low-risk adults should work normally rather than from home. Restaurants and other businesses should open. Arts, music, sport, and other cultural activities should resume. People who are more at risk may participate if they wish, while society as a whole enjoys the protection conferred upon the vulnerable by those who have built up herd immunity. The following 511 signatures were gathered from individuals at least 18 years of old who live, work, worship, or are otherwise invested into the Mitchell community over a 24-hour period. Roughly 50% of them were Mitchell citizens. There would have been many, many more that would have signed, but many people in the community are in fear of retribution and professional retaliation against themselves, their spouses, their children, and their parents, and felt they could not sign this petition. We are also aware of medical professionals who want to sign our petition, but they've seen their like-minded colleagues across the nation and even state lose their jobs and sometimes licenses for speaking what they believe in. There are also doctors in this community who are fearful of writing notes in defense of those who should not be wearing them due to medical issues because they know their employers will retaliate. There were 3 questions in responses to which we asked, and they're broken down in the attached pie charts. Do you work in the city of Mitchell? Do you actively pursue shopping options that do not require a mask for entry? And does the presence of a mask mandate lead you to spend more of your shopping dollars online or in other communities? And by personally adding our names to this letter, we implore you to support Health Freedom for All, respectfully signed by 511 Mitchell area residents against Mitchell mask mandate. There were 68% of the 511 people that work in Mitchell. 95% of them actively pursue shopping options that do not require a mask for entry. 95% also said that the presence of the mask would lead them to spend more money online or in other communities because of this mask mandate. We are asking you to please do not pass this mandate and let it be our choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. My name is David Lambert. I represent the Mitchell Area Chamber and Development Corporation, and I live and reside in Kevin McCardle's district, or location. I'm here to read a letter put together by the leadership teams of both the Mitchell Area Chamber and Development in support of the emergency ordinance to require wearing face coverings in Mitchell. Dear Mayor Everson and Mitchell City Council members, we, the executive board members of the Mitchell Area Chamber of Commerce and the Mitchell Area Development Corporation, support an ordinance mandating masking/face covering as part of a community effort to slow the spread of COVID-19. We believe this ordinance will help to protect our healthcare workers, schools, and all citizens of Mitchell. We also consider this an effective method, combined with other CDC guidelines, to keep the Mitchell economy open for business. We urge you to pass this mandate for the health of our community and its residents. Sincerely, Jason Stabner, South Dakota Industries, Chris Cromer, Cromer Plumbing, Tim Bottom, Morgan Thieler, Trevor Dirks, First Dakota National Bank, Lori Bay, Wells Fargo, Becky Pitts, a poet, and Brad Zimmerman of McLeod's Printing. On a personal note, I am thankful for all of you for taking the time and inviting the public here, including members of the business community who I recognize have an impact, and not always a positive one. It seems as though we have spent an awful lot of time talking about whether masks are useful, functional. The reality is that other than the medical community, which at times seems to be divided on the subject, there is no easy, simple answer. However, what we've been doing up to this point hasn't been working. It has continued to increase and spike in ways that we cannot understand or fully comprehend. Putting a mask mandate in place is one way that other communities have been able to successfully slow the spread, not stop it, but slow the spread of this deadly pandemic. I'm also thankful that we have the individual right to come and talk to you tonight, but I'm reminded of the fact that I have a father who's a veteran of a world war not so many years ago, who reminded me that the freedoms that we enjoy today, independence, having a voice, is only because of the social responsibilities of the generation before us. We have a responsibility to do what's right from a society perspective, which sometimes means that we have to override our independent or individual rights as individuals. And so with that, I thank you for your time, for your consideration, and obviously for the work that you have done up to this point to prepare yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and City Council, my name's Lori Essig. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I think I have a slightly different perspective. My personal COVID death tally is at 7, mostly older people, I'll grant you that, but none of them were dying, and now they're gone. I wear my mask to keep my germs to myself. And as I've told probably Susan, it's also, you know, an accessory, right? It matches. That was a joke. It's hard to tell because you can't see my face. One point that I would like to make to business owners is that people like me have not been shopping in your stores or eating in your restaurants since April. I simply cannot afford to take a risk that would take COVID home to my family members. It's just unacceptable. If I'm not assured that your employees and servers are going to be wearing masks to keep their germs to themselves, like I wear my mask, I'm going to stay away. Conversely, we've spent a lot of time in Minnesota this summer, over the past 6 months, and while people can say all they want to about the nastiness of that state mandate, I will tell you, I am far more comfortable going out to eat outdoors or shopping in a store in Minnesota where I know the employees are wearing masks and keeping their germs to themselves. So I've spent more money there than I have spent here since April, and that makes me feel bad. I would far rather do my shopping and going out to eat here in Mitchell. What we've been doing has not been working, and I really encourage you to listen to the medical professionals first and foremost who are crying out for our help and implement a mask mandate. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Quinn Dannenbring. I'm a freshman at the Mitchell High School, I don't know what ward I live in, but
You live in Ward 3.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, so I am here to talk about the mask mandate, obviously. 257,000 people. That's how many previously healthy people have died because of this pandemic. We have not gotten this under control. We have to do something different. We can sit here and argue the masks for hours. Whatever side you're on, you can find evidence to back it up. But we need to protect our fellow Americans. Wearing a mask, it's patriotic. It saves lives. So why don't we look at that? Why don't we look at the people who do have pre-existing health conditions, who can't wear masks, the people that have severe asthma, who can't wear masks? Protect those people. Think about those people. You might not have anybody who has been affected by COVID that you know, but some people have lost multiple family members. Think about those people. Thank you.
My name is Mac Miller. I live in Ward 4. I've proudly served in the military for 16 years, be 17 in like two weeks. Done 2 tours overseas. Missed my children's first day of.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Missed my children's first day of school. All right, I'll start over, sorry. My name is Mac Miller, I live in Ward 4. I've proudly served the military for 16 years. I've done 2 tours overseas and numerous state active duty missions as well, including the flood in Pierre and then Dakota Dunes. I missed my children's first day of school for this country, birthdays, Christmases. I've made them suffer so that I can fulfill my dream to serve this country so that we can have freedom, so that we can have individual rights. Somebody talked about overwrite. Germany once did that too. They followed what the mass was saying. Gave up guns. I don't think that ended well. Ended good for us, I guess. We won. Talking about staffing issues, I'd like to know Mr. Bates's, Amanda Millens, John Foster was here, other business owners that I may not know or recognize, I apologize. Your guys' staffing issues, how you guys look at your employees and get to pick out which one's going to be able to pay their light bill by not being able to work. Every business owner that's come up here said business is down, and that's due to one reason only. Inherent risk that these fine people took to create jobs, you guys are taking that away, point blank. You're the ones looking at your constituents saying, pick a bill. It's not the business owners saying that to their employees. You guys are saying that to them. We, as Americans, have individual choice of freedoms. I'm not a criminal. I once worked in law enforcement, I think 2.5 years in this town. I have a clean background, not even a speeding ticket. But yet if I forget to wear a mask, I'm instantly labeled. That's because of you. My job requires me to walk into many businesses and discuss financial records with them. Every single business in the last week has been hit and hit hard. And to me, we're killing Mitchell's Main Street. Talk about saving one life. One life is too many. Nobody will ever disagree with you. Wear a mask if you want to wear a mask. That is your right. Choice. That's what makes America America, is us having our own voice, our own choice, our own freedoms. And if we want to start saving lives, we can also talk about abortion.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm also a small business owner in town. Excuse me. I'm Brandon Whip. We have about 8 employees.
State your name, would you please?
Brandon Whip.
Thank you.
We have about 8 employees or so, and this thing will kill my business. I can't with a clear conscience tell my employees that
Brandon, can you speak into the microphone? We're
they
having a
have
hard
to
time
wear
hearing
a mask because I can't stand a mask for very long at all, and fortunately my work doesn't require it. I don't have a problem putting on a mask when I go into businesses that require it, and I want them to have that right as I want that right in my business. I just can't with a clear conscience tell them that they need to wear a mask. So it's against what I believe, and I think at this point I have to stand up for what I believe. I feel like the media has just brainwashed our society. And I try to say everything with respect. I appreciate all of you guys. I appreciate this town. And I am a law-abiding citizen wherever I can be. I just feel like this conflicts with what I believe. I believe this is an evil agenda by the from the radical left that is pushing their ideas, and it is not really effective. I'm just blown away how the media can control an entire society and tell them what to do. And I feel like these masks are causing people to, if I go out and personally go out and see all these people, all this, it just makes me, it literally causes depression and anxiety in our society. And I believe that's what's killing the people, not the actual viruses and diseases that are around. And statistically, it's a very survivable disease. I feel like going out and encouraging and giving words of life, this is what we did. We went through this as a church. We all had COVID. And we just encouraged each other and told everybody they'll be fine, and prayed for each other, prayed over each other, and everybody recovered basically within 3 days, just pep talking them. I do that with my kids. I just tell them that, hey, you're okay, you're doing well, you're a good kid. And just positive thinking, positive talking encourages people to the next level, and even overcoming disease. And I feel like this whole thing is just dragging down our society to the point where we cannot recover. It's just discouraging us and causing depression in our nation. And that's what it does for me. And this time, I feel like if I didn't have Jesus Christ to look at and as my hope and my comfort, my peace, I would be losing it. I would be going crazy in this time. And that's what this thing is doing. It's just a whole bunch of negativity. And I want to obey the law, so that's why I'm saying I'm just going to have to quit my business if that becomes a law. And I just appreciate your time. I appreciate the doctors, the hospitals. I just feel like the quickest way to clear out the hospitals is positivity and supporting each other verbally, not covering our mouths up and just, I mean, I just don't feel like a cloth loaded with bacteria on our face will do anything for anybody.
Okay, that's your time, so wrap it up,
Thank you,
please.
sir.
Thank you.
Julie Olson, Ward 4, high school science teacher. I stand in favor of the mask mandate. As of now, right now, the schools are still open. It proves that masks work. Where our county has an infection rate from the start of school of 10%, the school only has 5%. That's including staff and students. And according to the research, high school students are just as vulnerable as young adults, our largest group of COVID positive people. But if we don't do something now, it's only a matter of time before the schools have to go to online. And then you've got even more parents who have to stay home to watch their kids. And then they can't work. I'm a lifelong resident of Mitchell, except for when I went to college. And we just got to stick together. People, you know, you got to do, those who can have to do for those who can't. About 1/8 of our students have pre-existing conditions. A lot of those are genetic. The health won't, the vitamins, that's not going to change their genes. That's not going to change their genes. We know students learn better. I want to be in school. I do my job better when I'm at school. I can connect with the students. It's exhausting trying to be positive because those kids, there's a lot of them that are down. It's hard looking at that student who's just clutching their phone because grandma is in the hospital and they don't know when she's going to die. They're waiting for that call. And they're also scared because did I give it to them? It's something that we can do. It's easy. It's easy. Yes, I recognize there are people who can't wear a mask. That's why those of us who can should do for those who can't. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to talk?
Good evening, Chad Van Laken. I do appreciate you guys letting everybody come up here and speak. I don't envy you one bit. It's the position you're in. You know, as I was thinking about what I would say when I came here tonight, I had different topics I could discuss. And as I've sat over here and listened, it's sad how divided our community is.
Chad, can you speak closer to the microphone?
Yes, it's sad how divided our community is over this topic. And again, that's why I say I don't envy you. You have a tough choice to make. The individual, I can't remember his name, that probably hit me the most was the young man that served in the military. He served so that we could have the freedom to choose. He served not to let you tell me or my family what we need to do to protect ourselves. He served so that we could each have an individual choice. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
Diane Kinkle. I am a nurse practitioner just a block west of here. I'm scared to stand right here because of the people coughing and hacking. I just want to explain one really simple principle. My mask is not protecting me. Your mask is protecting me. So when a gentleman stands up here without a mask and coughs and hacks, that is staying right here, and I'm standing in it now. So when we say that the mask mandate is taking away a personal freedom, that is only really important when we don't realize that our actions are affecting others. It's kind of like secondhand smoke. When we believed that smoking was only hurting the person that was smoking, it wasn't important to have a no smoking policy. But when we got the science to realize that the smoke was hurting the people around us, then the no smoking policy became important. The mask mandate will protect the people who need to be protected because you're wearing your mask. I feel really bad for the people who feel they can't go into a business that has a mask mandate posted on their door. The reason they're doing that is to protect those patrons. I personally don't go into a business unless everyone there is wearing a mask, because my wearing a mask doesn't protect me. It protects the people around me. So by you guys making it mandatory for masks, that will allow me to go to restaurants, to go to businesses. There might be 511 people that say they don't go to businesses that have masks mandate, but I can tell you there's 15,000 people in this town. There's probably more of us that are not going to businesses because there are no masks there. When we're all wearing masks to protect all of us, it will increase our freedom to go places, not decrease it. It's going to increase business income, not decrease it. Please stand your firm. We're dependent on you guys. Amen.
Thank you.
Cody Music, Ward 4. Thank you, council members and Mayor Everson. I want to thank the council, and specifically Mayor Everson, for taking immediate and effective action last week. Around town, I have personally noticed a significant increase in the number of masks. You should be proud of your actions so far. This ordinance is working, and now let's not move in the wrong direction. We have tried a suggestion-only strategy for months, and that plan has failed us. Mayor Everson signed on to a letter with over a dozen other mayors asking for all of us to wear masks, and it did not work. Avera has been pleading with us, both in these meetings and in the paper, to wear masks, and it has not worked. Tonight, this council can do what it takes and vote yes on this ordinance. Our healthcare workers and our healthcare system have told you exactly what they need. They need your help. When you and your families need help, they take care of you. And now, it's your turn to take care of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to speak before we go into council discussion? Of course you do. Okay.
That's why I've been short on some of those timers, because I was trying to track all these at the same time, so my apologies on that. I got to start back at the beginning. We gave the same rules as we did for council, and that they had to state their name to have their messages read. You've been talking for 2.5 hours. I got to get way back up to the beginning. So the first one is Jenny Holzer, and she says she works at Sanford Health Mitchell, and just wanted to show her support for the mask mandate and support what Dr. Christine Arnold and Dr. Brian Jarks brought forth
last meeting, wearing a mask is only helping to slow the virus so our healthcare system is able to take care of patients that need it. Where's my, let's just hope my computer doesn't go down. Okay, and then the next one was from Amy Novak, and she asked that her statement be read. President of DWI, Ward 1, today the state of South Dakota has had as many COVID deaths as all the people who died of the flu in total last year in this state. This is a serious health emergency that needs our government to actively protect its citizens through an enforceable mask mandate. It's not sufficient to merely suggest people wear masks because they don't. The last 8 months are evidence of the failure of the general public to comply with the simple request. Without some form of enforcement, people simply refuse. At DWU sporting events, we repeatedly have individuals who refuse to comply. They know what the requirements of attendance are, and they still come without a desire to comply. The result is that these folks yell, scream, and bully their way into trying to attend. We refuse to allow them, but we should be able to have an enforcement mechanism that helps us address individuals who blatantly refuse to comply. The cost of COVID to the university this semester will exceed $1 million, and that doesn't include the loss of recruitment and retention of both employees and students whose parents find the City of Mitchell's lack of a coherent and enforceable policy a risk to their safety and well-being. The professional healthcare workers in this community deserve our respect and support. A mask mandate is necessary to ensure that they can protect not only COVID patients, but themselves, their families, and any patient who needs emergency services for other related issues. Having hospitals at capacity and limited staff available because of COVID jeopardizes our very ability to protect the citizens of this community. Please stand firm with a decision to enforce a mask mandate in this community. Every life matters, and your decision demonstrates a moral commitment to saving lives. Marissa, I'm probably going to say her last name wrong. I apologize. It looks like ABTS, and I teach 5th grade in the Mitchell School District. I completely support the mask mandate. As a teacher, I want to continue teaching your children that I love as my own. In-person learning is the best, in-person learning is best for kids and teachers alike. I want all of my students as well as their families to remain safe. I also have my own son at home whom I try hard to keep safe. If masking is what is going to keep us safe and keep our healthcare workers from getting overwhelmed, I'm all for it. Madison Daly, she didn't give her ward. In-person learning is best for kids. The mask mandate allows students and teachers to stay in school and healthy. Christopher Poe, Ward 1. I support the mask mandate. Masks are most effective at preventing sick people from spreading COVID-19. Infected individuals are contagious before they are symptomatic, if ever. Ryan Stangland, Ward 1. Since the mask mandate was started 7 days ago, we have had an increase of 264 cases, and the number of deaths has almost doubled from 15 to 28. When do we stop killing people with compassion? Jessica Furst, she thinks Ward 3. Please keep the mask mandate. Sadly, we can't rely on people doing the right thing. I have COVID-19. I have no symptoms. Besides no taste and smell, I'm lucky. Many people aren't. Adam Meany, Ward 2. I support the mask mandate staying in effect. Too many people will not listen to experts and the council if it's just a suggestion. Help the healthcare workers to help. Masks are the minimum. Tim Goldhammer, Ward 1. I would suggest, if not citywide, then essential places like grocery stores or government buildings to protect high-risk people, but I prefer citywide. Jesse Parker, Ward 3. If the mask mandate is passed, can face shields be added to the list of acceptable masks? The CDC has face shields listed as an acceptable face mask. Jenna Bird, Ward 4. I will do as the council decides, but I don't think the mask mandate is the right thing to do. Businesses have been struggling, and now more people don't want to go out because of it. Boyce Way, Ward 3, I support an enforceable mask mandate. Our hospitals are overwhelmed. Businesses are understaffed due to illness. People won't take this thing seriously without consequences. Jessica Steidel, she says she lives in the Woods Edition, and I support no masks. I believe in choice and businesses to have the choice on wearing masks in their business. Lisa Kraut, Ward 4. Dr. Jarks is my doctor, and he has personally told me that masks don't work. Was Dr. Jarks lying to me then, or was he lying to council last week? Rochelle Ryder, Ward 2. Please support the mask mandate ordinance with enforcement to support healthcare workers and help protect family, friends, and neighbors from needing hospitalization. Kim Brugerier, sorry about the last names again, Ward 1. I would ask the board to please think back a week ago, Dr. Margello and other well-respected physicians from our community spoke asking for help. Our medical professionals are begging you to follow the science as they tell you the truth they're seeing in our own hospital and clinics. Those are our friends and family members they are trying to save. Masks are not political. Masks are not political. I think that said that twice. Wearing a mask does not mean government controls us. I think there was one more in here. Hold on. Karen Whitney, please pass the mask mandate as originally written. With the vaccine close to being ready, we should do as much as possible much as we possibly can to save lives. Again, they were supposed to state their name at the beginning of this, so because they talk to each other in here too. So I'm just reading those that said they wanted to be on the record. Okay, Matthew Rames, Ward 2. I support the mask mandate. I think it will be the most effective way to keep businesses and schools open. Paul Bernard, Ward 4. The only way our businesses will see their customers return is if the population is healthy. The only way to ensure healthiness is by masking up. Listen to the doctors. Oh, shoot, where'd it go? Katina Cost, Ward 1. As a small business owner mother, I fully support the mask mandate as it stands. And if they submitted multiple comments, just like council, I only read the first one, just like you said, they could come up and speak one time. That should be all of them.
Okay. Before we go into discussion on council, do you want to take a 5-minute break? Okay. Start the timer, please. Go ahead. Okay, if I can get you to take your seats. I hope not. Okay, you've seen the ordinance, it's in front of you. Is there anything you want to discuss about amending it?
Anybody? I've got, from suggestions on emails and correspondence from people, I've got at least 2 items I'd like to add. I'd like to change item 3A, if you'll pull that up.
I can see it. Can you see it all right?
I think so. Okay.
Okay, item 3A.
Yep, item 3, I'd like the wording changed to
You got to speak in your microphone.
changed from children under the age of 5 to children age 5 and under.
I think that should have something to do with preschool because if we
Several
don't,
emails of groupings of children 4 and 5 together and not 5 and 6 or
right,
under.
school, there are some kindergarten kids that are 5.
Yep.
And if we just strictly say 5 and under, that would contradict what they're trying to do. But if we're
But
5 and under
school
in a
already-
preschool.
School already has a requirement for
Well,
masks.
Okay, but they also have these arguments. So it gives an ambiguity. Now,
But
I don't
the-
know
the
how we handle
requests-
it.
The requests
Let's-
I have are from preschools that ask it to be
Yeah.
5 and under.
And I think we should put a caveat about preschool in there.
That's what I've been
That's up
getting
to
to,
you.
Steve, is it's the preschools and the, First Lutheran Child Learning Center, they have 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds in the same room, so how
Yep.
can they tell 4-year-old you don't have to wear a mask, but 5-year-old you do, so they would
And
like to
actually,
have
the
that.
conversation I had with them, and whether you agree with masks or not, they had 4-year-olds that wanted to wear them because the 5-year-olds were.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah,
Of course
I
they do.
think that change would definitely
Of
help out
course
those
they did,
providers a lot. I think
So
change
one way wording or another that 5 and under, or wording for preschools or something, but K-12 already has masks. So I don't see what the issue is with saying 5 and under.
Should we act on each one of these things since, yeah, so I'll second that.
Yes.
Bob, are you okay with taking each one individually instead of
Yes.
trying?
It's going to be a lot easier for me too, so thank you.
Okay, and I guess I'm willing, whatever wording, if it's preschool related or 5 and under, but just to make sure that the preschools don't have issue with
I would agree, in
the kids.
preschools. My issue is if you say 5 and under, you have kindergartners that are 5 years old. My granddaughter goes to kindergarten, she's
Right,
5
but
years
the-
old.
the
So if
schools
we
have-
say she doesn't have to wear a mask,
No,
the
but-
next thing you know, you're gonna have parents
Right,
going
but
to the school saying,
the schools
city
already
says.
have
Yeah, well, they're in.
that say that it's required.
Who's gonna rule, us or the school?
I'll
On
just-
school
The
property,
school
we don't
will.
have,
I'm just saying,
Just as
you're,
a,
you're opening up an area for people to argue.
I'd say preschool. I mean,
okay,
that's the emails I had are from people, people from preschools that had 4 and 5-year-olds, and the 5-year-olds had to wear them, and the 4-year-olds didn't have to wear
Right.
them, and there were kids crying.
trying to accommodate that.
Yeah.
I don't
The
care
other-
what the wording is.
It's a distraction.
If
The
we
other
wanna
way
say
to do it would
Didn't
be to exempt those in the K through 12 system.
That might be better.
the,
you could say
just as a
children-
frame of reference, the Brookings ordinance exempts schools because they have their own protocol in place. So that was just an example of what they did in that situation. So I'm happy either way.
Okay, I'll make
Preschools.
the motion with preschools.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by,
Me.
well, actually,
So,
Mrs.
Steve, I
Charks
guess,
made a
how do you
second,
want me to
didn't you?
phrase that then? Do you want me to do children age 5 and under enrolled in a preschool, or I guess I'm not clear on what the change is.
Hold on a second.
I thought it was in somebody else's resolution, or not the resolution, but did Sioux Falls have somebody had the 5 and under, and then they specified like preschool, daycare providers, something along that. They sort of paragraphed it out. Where'd I see that at? Okay. Yeah, but I'm saying we
That
might
wording
steal
would
it
be
from
great.
That wording would be great?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned.
From the resolution then? Okay. So that, just for the record here, states children under the age of 5.
You're going to have to get closer to the microphone.
Children under the age of 5 or including age 5 if attending a preschool or daycare facility.
Yes.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it
I will
was
make
somewhere
that motion.
Okay.
on the resolution.
I'll second
I
it.
thought that's what I heard from you.
Thanks, Mitty.
Glad we got there.
Okay. Any further discussion on that one? All those in favor of the motion for that change signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next item.
I would, and whether or not I get a second or not, I would also like to add a section 8 to include churches and places of worship as being exempt. I don't know if that's section 8 or if it would be item 3E.
I'll second that too.
I would suggest 3E.
3E.
And I don't know if we can add something like the verbiage, like with the strong recommendation that social distancing or separation of 6 feet or more be maintained if possible.
I think COVID does not stop at a church door. I think you should leave the churches in it as it is.
I make the motion and.
Yep,
Did
you've
you
got a
second?
motion.
Okay.
Steve, I'll pull some language here for you. This is from the Brookings ordinance. It says persons engaged in church and religious places of worship, which may implement their own protections.
Yep.
Is that acceptable?
Yes, that'd be very good. Thank you.
What was that? I didn't hear the whole thing. I didn't hear the first part.
Persons engaged in church and religious places of worship, which may implement their own protections.
Okay, motion by Mr. Rice.
Yes.
Did you second that? Okay, second by Mrs. Charles.
I don't quite understand how
wording?
you could start picking and choosing which one you're going to start with and which ones you're not, so I'm not going to support this.
Yeah, I question it too. It's, you know, it's a gathering of people, and if that's what our rules are enforcing, then like I said, where do you draw the line that church is okay, and then the next place that you gather, you can't? I mean, we're going to start singling them out. We might as well start putting a bunch of different gathering places. So I agree with you, and I'm going to echo what Jeff said. I just can't support that. If it's either we're either all or none.
And I totally understand. I've received communications on both sides from pastors, different pastors requesting it. So I thought it would be something that would be good to at least have the discussion about. You know, a lot of the pastors that I've spoken to or that have written to me specifically have talked about that they have their own protocols in place. But I just assured them that we would at least have the discussion, so.
Okay.
I agree. Support the churches to be exempt. I think that Jeff said it too, and Marty, that where do you stop and start then?
Okay,
I
we have
agree
a
with that also. I just don't think we can pick, choose. A citywide, if we do a citywide mandate, I think it should be a citywide mandate.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call this, please.
Can you tell me what we're voting on, exactly what the verbiage is?
So this would be to add an exemption under 3E. It would state persons engaged in church and religious places of worship which may implement their own protections. Which basically would be an exemption from the mask requirement for churches.
Cindy, we might be able to do it as a regular vote. Let's try that, and if I can't figure out who's on what side, we'll do roll call, all right? So all those in favor of the motion to exempt churches?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So it is nay. Okay, next item. No other items?
I want a clarification of exactly, is it the day that you started, or they signed it in place, Bob, was the 17th?
Tuesday was.
Or, in other words, Justin, when does this end if we don't act on it any further?
The executive order or this ordinance?
Both.
This will replace the executive order, correct?
It would, correct. So
And
the-
so it'd be
So would
60 days. So if this goes through, it will replace it 60 days.
Starting
from
today?
now. Starting today.
starting the effective date, which would be Saturday probably at the earliest.
Oh, because of publishing.
Because
Oh,
it's from
I'm sorry,
published
I
date.
forgot
so-
publishing.
So,
We can rescind that anytime.
Right, we added language last week that said that date can be altered by resolution, so that means that the council can basically do it at any time and take it out of effect.
And yes, the 17th was the day I enacted the.
okay,
And council could also extend that if they felt it was appropriate. They can either shorten the time frame or extend the time frame.
So that would be at any regular city council meeting, you would have the opportunity to pass a resolution. It doesn't require that same process as the ordinances.
Would you rather have it reviewed at a specific meeting, like the
I
second
would.
meeting of every month?
we talked about that last week, the second meeting, just to keep it on the agenda, so if somebody wanted to come in, and then it also gives us an opportunity to post it in the paper, so if we did want to act on it, then we could. And I think maybe every meeting might be a little bit too much, but I like maybe the second meeting of each month.
I would prefer every meeting, because the way this thing changes so often, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, take 5 minutes out of every meeting and let people talk and with the council, and I think that it changes by the minute.
And, I mean, we can do that as frequently or, as
We could do that with an
often
agenda
as
item,
often
right?
as council would like.
We could just agenda item without changing language in the ordinance?
Yeah, the way it exists right now, all we'd have to do is bring a resolution back and they could change the effective date.
Is that acceptable?
And that could be every meeting, it could be every other, you could call special meetings, whatever the council deems necessary.
That way, we just have to put it on the agenda. We've given
Right.
you instructions until this ends,
Yes.
it'll be on every agenda.
Yes, and then council can.
In a regular meeting.
Right.
Right. Or if 60 days go by and we don't reenact it, it would fall off.
Right, I was just going to confirm that everybody's aware that the ordinance already has a built-in expiration, and it says 60 days after the publication date. So that's the longest it could go into place, but you could take it off earlier by resolution, which is a single meeting. Or extended.
Right.
So I didn't hear you there, Justin, just to make sure. So it's either we add it to the agenda for the Wednesday before, or it's automatically going to be on the second one?
Yeah, if anybody, I mean, what we're hearing here is, we want it at least every second meeting, but if situations dictate we need it more often than that, we can certainly do that as long as we've got enough time to meet the notice requirement.
Okay.
Is that acceptable?
I also noted in Sioux Falls, in their resolution, that they used January 1st. So it was, and I know it's just as effective if we keep it on each, but if we want a shorter window, we can still renew it, or at least it gives people an opportunity to say, well, 60 days is a long time. But I understand also that we'll be able to discuss it at each meeting too, so just thought I'd throw that out there.
I agree, Jeff, that we should revisit this more often than less often.
But I guess my question is 60 days, and before we officially act again, we can act if we want.
Well, the
But-
60 days sunsets it, so if you don't reenact it within those 60 days, it goes away.
Yeah, my question is, do we want it sooner?
Okay.
I don't, to clear it up, I have no issue why we can't have this on every meeting. I don't know why we don't, you know, we can.
We can have it on every
Yeah,
meeting.
I just
Let's
think
put
for
it on every
simple and
meeting.
clarity, it's
Just
on
do
every
it.
meeting to discuss, it's pretty simple. We know for most part where we're gonna stand on some of the issue a little bit. If we know we have some issues going on, I mean, I just think we can keep it there and the discussion can be deemed very quickly by the mayor, so.
So we have to make a motion on putting it on every meeting, or are we just?
No, we'll just
Okay.
put it on every
Put it
meeting.
on every
Yeah,
meeting. I
that one
agree.
wouldn't be a change, unless you wanted to change it to a shorter period. But the way it sits, it's 60 days unless you change it by resolution. And we can discuss that resolution at every meeting.
Is that a majority vote? Just a simple majority?
The
To
resolution.
change the
Resolution?
time period, yes, yes, to pass the resolution would just be a simple majority.
I wanted to look at item B because it seems like there's some confusion about that, and I'm wondering if it would be helpful if we added individuals who have who have medical conditions or disabilities preventing them from safely wearing a face covering. I think we had at one point said, or people with a mental health condition, which it sounds like there are some concerns about that being an additional. It may be redundant, but it does clarify that it's both medical, like medical in a physical way or a mental disability. So I would like to add that verbiage.
Can you paraphrase that for me?
Sorry.
Okay, here's Sioux Falls, it says an individual with medical condition, mental health condition, or disability that makes it unreasonable for the individual to maintain a face covering. Would that be acceptable?
That's
Where were you
perfect.
getting that out of, Sioux Falls?
That's item D on Sioux Falls.
Item D on Sioux Falls.
Is that, Susan, is that wording include?
That sounds perfect. Thank
Include
you.
what you want?
So I would make that motion that we change that verbiage to the Sioux Falls
Okay.
verbiage.
Motion by Mrs. Charks,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion on it?
I just need to clarify one more time. So individuals who have medical conditions, mental health conditions, or disabilities? Is that
Disability that makes it unreasonable for the individual to maintain a face covering.
So Justin, would that cover, a fella called me 2 nights ago and said that he uses a breathing machine at night to keep him sleep, and his lungs aren't the best in function. And when he put a mask on, he just can't breathe. And he told me, I'm still going to the Breakfast Club tomorrow morning and have breakfast without a mask. What are you going to do about it? And I says, nothing. So would he'd be exempt, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think at this point, you know, people are basically going to be on the honor system with claiming a medical condition or mental health condition. If we have reason to believe that that's being abused by people, we may have to reevaluate how we're handling it. But I mean, I think
Sure.
the present intention would be to take people for their word.
And the only other thing, I just thought it would be good because of some of the comments that were made tonight, if we just.
Well, hold it.
Okay.
Let's finish one item
Oh,
first.
sorry. Okay.
Before we jump
Sorry.
into the next one, all
Yeah,
right?
we got a
Because we have a
amendment,
motion
right?
and a second.
Right.
So is there any more discussion on this item?
I don't know how you can go by an honor system because, I mean, I could walk up and say, I can't breathe and I can breathe perfectly fine, and how are you gonna know if I can or if I can't do it?
But you know what, it's no different than anything else in the Americans with Disabilities Act. If people say they need a service dog, then you can't ask questions about why, and it's the same with this. We won't be, you know, if someone says I have a medical condition or I have a mental health condition,
You got it.
then no questions asked.
But it's an easy out for somebody who doesn't want to wear a mask. They can just say it. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
they can lie about it.
Well,
Which I
some
don't think
people
is-
really like their dogs, and so they become their service animal. So-
Actually, a service animal has to have a special certification to be that, so.
I think we're opening a can of worms there, but that's my thoughts.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay, what's your next item?
So these aren't really items except for for clarification, because with some of the comments that were made previously, this really is a commentary, not a motion, but I just want to remind the people who are listening that this is a pretty broad, we've made this pretty broad, and we've made it so that if you are indoors and you're able to maintain and achieve and maintain 6 feet of separation, that you don't have to wear a mask. So I think that we need to recognize that we're really doing a lot. We're trying to make this as palatable for everybody involved. So I think that that's something that we need to remember. And the other thing was that there were some concerns about people exercising and, working out and how hard it is then. And that is another one of our exceptions, that 3C is individuals who are actively participating in an athletic or sporting event. I just wanted to call attention to those things, that there were some concerns expressed, and I wanted to just clarify that for the audience.
Susan, just one other thing, and I don't know that we need to make a change to the ordinance or anything here, but we did get a number of questions asking about whether this would apply to private residences, and we wanted to clarify that it does not. Like I said, I don't know that we need any change to the ordinance, but...
Should we add that as F?
I don't think that's necessary, because if you look under 1, it's indoor businesses and indoor public places, so I don't think that there's any argument that that's going to apply to a private residence, but we did get the question, so just wanted to clarify that it would not apply there.
Do you want to touch on the penalty associated with this?
One other thing before we jump down to that, I know we've had a number of comments, and even tonight it was suggested, making clear that a face shield would be an acceptable alternative to a face mask. So I just wanted to bring that up for council discussion on whether you wanted to explicitly include a face shield in the list of the other types of masks that are listed there.
I think you're supposed to use a face shield in combination with a face mask, are you not? By CDC guideline?
Yeah. I think the CDC guidelines do list it as an alternative. I think ideally they'd want people wearing both, but I think the CDC guidelines do list it as an alternative.
An example of a question I got last week was an individual who can't wear a face mask for another reason, medical reason, so was a face shield going to be acceptable? But if they would see it in there, they wouldn't have to call and make the request or the question, I guess.
One of the things, one of the things that they say is if those the shields are open, so there's a lot of things that can come in. So typically, that would be something that would protect a person's eyes if there was a concern about that. But the mask should be worn in conjunction with the shield, the face shield. So I think I would struggle supporting that as one of the definitions.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on to the fines, I was just going to, Susan brought up an example, and I was asked this question actually several times, is if you can maintain your 6 feet distance while you're in a business or inside, then you're not required. I can go to my grocery store and I can maintain 6 feet and go through the self-checkout and I can leave and I can be just totally compliant with our ordinance if we pass it. What if somebody invades my space? Who do you arrest?
Good point.
I don't know if you're looking for an answer for that, Jeff.
You're,
or if that was
you're
a
the legal
rhetorical
beagle.
question, I mean, the intention here would be not to arrest anybody. You know, we're hoping for voluntary compliance. So I guess just back to the point, I think the CDC on face shields specifically does acknowledge that they're less effective, but I think that they do recognize it as an alternative, and particularly for ones that may have medical reasons not to wear an actual cloth face covering. So.
Okay, as far as the penalty phase goes, right now, we're taking a very soft approach to this, not running out and fining people, but telling them there is a mask mandate, you need to wear a mask, please put on a mask. If you continue to do it, then we have the option to enforce the fining portion.
Kind of related to that, and I had one email question from a small business owner and it's kind of Jeff's question a little bit from the business side of saying, if I'm complying within my business and I continue to have people come in and don't comply, am I in violation, or is the person without the mask in violation?
Yeah, so the way that the ordinance is currently written, there is no obligation on that business owner, business to do any of their own enforcement. So they're not going to be responsible if their customers or their employees are not, masking up. It's all on the individual to be responsible for wearing their mask.
Okay, thank you.
I was in a business this weekend, and everybody working had masks on. I bought this, I had a mask on, and two people came in, and the business owner just said, we simply prefer you to wear a mask if you shop here. And they pulled the mask out of their pocket and put it on. I think everybody has a mask with them, and if you just ask people to wear them, they'll put them on, I think. I mean, I witnessed it this Saturday afternoon on a business downtown Main Street.
And I do think that this mandate gives some support to those business owners who want to have masks worn in their business. It gives them kind of a backup of the city has this ordinance in place as well, so I think it's pro-business that way.
Are there other changes, amendments to the ordinance you want? Okay, then we're...
So what happens if somebody keeps repeating it? What is the fine?
So
Do you have a dollar amount, or what?
It's going to fall under our general penalty provision in our ordinance. Really, any violation of city code has that maximum possible penalty of up to $500 and 30 days in jail. I'm not saying that that's likely for anybody who's violating the ordinance. I would see this more in line with something like disorderly conduct, where if somebody has to be brought into court on an offense like that, typically the fines and costs are about $132.50. And a majority of those fines and costs are not due to the city's fine itself.
Justin, since it's an ordinance, it has to have a fine?
No, not necessarily. So I guess if the council saw fit, you could put a cap on what the fee is, or you could set that amount in the ordinance. And if you wanted to do that, my suggestion would also be to build language in there that amount can be changed by resolution, so that if the council needs to come back and change that at a future date, you don't have to go through the entire ordinance process again just to change that number. But again, that fine that I mentioned here, $132.50, maybe $40 of that is the city's portion of those costs.
The rest is court costs?
The rest of it would be court costs, county fee. I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but the city's portion of it is pretty minimal. So we could set our portion at zero, but there's still going to be other costs if it ever came to actually, taking the matter to court.
Well, I certainly would like us to remove the fine, or either, Lord, I don't like the $500 amount, and I don't know, I've got a lot of people questioning that.
It would not be $500. That's
Correct,
a
it could be-
maximum. It's like every city violation we have.
I read Justin's email and got the
Okay.
gist of how that would work through the practice of it. I just still question the fact that I think I'd rather see us put a number on that, and that's what, or remove it completely.
If you read number 5, I like the wording of that. Have you read that?
What are you saying, John?
He likes the wording in number
I
5,
like the wording
violation of
of
this
number
ordinance
5
may
where it
result.
addresses the violations for the ordinance. I don't think we're looking to fine people. We're not looking to, as a money-raising deal. We're trying to educate people and, the fine is, and to define what the fine would be, we don't need to go there now.
Okay. And Marty, just, your point was maybe set it at some dollar limit, that's the city portion, potentially in wording?
Correct, yep.
Like $50 or
Right,
something?
and I know the protocol that I can go through, and it goes through Justin, I believe,
Yep.
and then it goes to the state attorney. I understand that, and I'm not gonna get into that tonight. That would cause total confusion amongst the community. I just think it'd be a lot easier if we're gonna have one, let's have a set amount and be done with it. But I understand
we
what
could only-
John pointed out in number 5, too.
And I've thought of that too. We could only say, if we said it was, the city's fine is $50, they still might end up with $112.50 that they have to pay because of filing fee and court costs and
Right, so-
other things that might be put on from the judge standpoint. And to me, that even makes it maybe, well, they said the fine was $50 and it cost me $112.
Yeah, so I think.
I don't know if that's better or worse, but I thought about, because I also had comments on, well, $500, I mean.
And I can give you kind of the exact situation you'd be looking at there, Marty, is if we did take a matter to court.
Justin, can you talk into the mic a little bit better?
I'll try. So if we did take a matter to court, and the standard is $132.50, and the council sets the city's portion at $0, the fine would end up being about $92.50. So really, it's about $40 that would be different. And we can do that. I mean, if there's consensus from the council here, I have control over the sentencing recommendation. If we ever had that happen, I can make a recommendation to the court that instead of the $132.50, that the fines and costs be a total of $92.50, so that the city's portion is $0. And we don't have to build that into the ordinance. I can do that just in my sentencing recommendation.
Then why don't we put that in the recommendations for the ordinance here, that 0?
We
fine
can
for
certainly do
mandate.
that. Like I said, if you wanted to set that the city fine at $0, then I would also build in there the language that you can change that dollar amount by resolution, so.
That still, oh, go ahead.
I would anticipate that if you state directly in the ordinance that the fine from the city is $0, there may be some confusion or conflict then if down the road you end up having to fine someone and they're saying, I thought you said the fine was $0, not realizing there's other costs on top of that. Just like when people pay their taxes and they think it's all going to the city and there's 10 different people that get the proportions. So I don't know if you'd want to build in language that said maybe the city portion of the fine would be at 0, there would be other court costs or something, just to avoid that conflict.
We could just say the city fine would be waived, the city portion of the fine.
Well, I don't know how to make the motion, because obviously there's plenty of discussion going on, and if it's a yes or no, it's what it is, but I'm gonna make the motion that we're at a $0 fine from the city, obviously include the court costs, that would be obviously subject to the person that was charged that, or whatever, but, like, just because of discussion, I'm gonna make that motion, so.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Allen.
Justin, can you take some time, and I'd like to know what the wording
Yeah,
is
just give
gonna
me a
be.
second here, I'll
And
think
that
of
could be
something.
changed by future resolution, as you mentioned.
So in essence, you have to go to court to be able to get the court costs from them, right?
Correct.
So you're losing his time to go to court to deal with this.
I don't
If
know,
you're at
I don't think I
$0.
understand what you're saying.
I think you gotta pay it first time, because, I mean, it doesn't work for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So in essence, yes, he's employed by us, but there is a time associated with him taking these to court. So to get the $92 court fees, he's got to go to court with them. He's got to take them to court. So if you waive us to zero, we're getting nothing, but the courts are getting money.
Basically, you're doing work for nothing, is what it comes down to.
What's the matter
Our
with-
goal isn't to fine everybody on this, it's to educate, okay? But if you have somebody that continually pushes the envelope, you have to have the ability to penalize them. That's the whole idea here.
The way 5 reads right now, do we have that option? It reads to me, though, as though we do have the option to, without stating exactly what the fine will be, there may be a fine.
But if you leave it status quo, it'll still show in the public that there's a potential $500 fine to the city.
And jail time. You could get, and our,
Plus court costs.
right.
I'm actually fine with zero.
Okay. Well, we have a motion, a second for zero.
And then just the city portion would be zero, is that what we're saying still?
Right.
And I'm just working on language here for you.
Okay.
And hopefully, we won't have any cases. Any,
Did you listen to these people?
I'm for Justin getting paid for his work.
And so, a question kind of for public safety, that doesn't inhibit our ability to enforce it all. It just says that the city's portion of the fine would be zero and there would be other court costs.
That's what I'm working on.
He came
Okay.
over to you, I guess, huh?
So, here's what I've got, and we'll see if this works for everybody here. So I left the first sentence in 5 as is. I added two new sentences here. Would read, when sentencing for a violation of this ordinance, the total fines and court costs shall include a fine representing the city's fine of $0. This amount may be amended by the city council by resolution at any time.
Okay, then maybe just a question to you. From a legal standpoint, that doesn't change our enforcement ability from public safety at all, does it?
No, I don't believe so. They'd still be responsible for other fines and court costs. There would still be those fees. I mean, there is a penalty, so I think it does at least provide some incentive, additional incentive for people to comply with the ordinance.
Okay, because I'm going back to the question I got from the small business of being worried about having to do the enforcement themselves, and we're saying that's not their responsibility.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. The businesses themselves would not be responsible, other than, you know, the managers or supervisors or owners being responsible for wearing theirs when it's appropriate to them.
Right, okay.
But if it's an issue, we can change it at any time?
Yeah, that dollar amount we built in here, that we can change that at any time. So if that penalty needs to increase at some point, that can be done.
Okay.
And I think it's important to point out, I just got a text from someone in the audience. I think it's important to remember that if a person is approached by a police officer in this case and said, would you please put on a mask, then by putting on the mask or explaining your exemption, then there wouldn't be any fine at all, right? I mean, I think that's an important thing. It's not like every person who isn't wearing a mask is going to incur this fine. I think that if they are willing to put a mask on or explain the reason they're exempt, then they, you know, would not incur any costs.
Correct. And
Okay, does
that
everybody
would
understand
include-
the motion or the change here? Read that again, please.
Okay, so the new language that would be added says, when sentencing for a violation of this ordinance, the total fines and court costs shall include a fine representing the city's fine of $0. This amount may be amended by city council by resolution at any time.
It does mention court costs, so there are court costs associated with it.
Do we need to mention that there may be court costs incurred?
He says that in there.
Yeah, it does say.
Yeah, it said that.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. Anything else?
The only other question I have, I don't think I think I know the answer. It's actually been coming from a few people.
That's correct. You're right. And so I misspoke. I misspoke. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. You would just need to say, I am exempt.
Right.
Okay, so just because I'm getting it actually the last week and then also even tonight a few times, and I want to speak out because the fact of, so they're listening, those that obviously have went through COVID, obviously are immune, got antibodies, they are to the point where they can't get COVID again, they can't give COVID at that time. Those people are asking, so do I have to wear a mask? Because I have not a fear to anybody in the public eye. The other part of that question that came up was the fact that obviously the vaccine is coming around pretty soon. Depending on how long, when that vaccine is, we've all been waiting for a long time. We hear it might be weeks away, months away, whatever it may be, but let's just say it's a week away and the vaccine is taking place. Those that are getting that vaccine shot, do they still got to wear a mask because they have it? So just questions that I'm getting hit on, open for discussion is all. So they're questioning that. Not that you have a get out of jail free card because you had COVID before and you get this little thing from the state that says you're in the clear, but it's a question they wanted me to bring up because technically they're immune to it. They can't give it to anybody else. So
I will just throw a wrench into that theory because I have a cousin who got COVID really bad, was in the hospital on a ventilator. And then when she got home, was supposedly all right, started symptoms again, and had her second test was also positive. So I think there's a little bit of debate to that. I know that that's the theory, the prevailing theory. So that's the prevailing theory.
I think that would be a yes for those that are listening.
How do you want to write that into it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Like I mentioned, I just wanted to bring it up for those that asked, so I did my due diligence for them.
Marty, I also had the question of a recovered COVID case, and would that be considered a medical condition that allowed them not to wear a mask?
Well, we can revisit this obviously in the future, but vaccine is a game changer.
Yes.
And hopefully we're not too far away.
Okay, so if there's no other amendments
I don't
to
have
it,
any other.
then we need a motion for the second reading.
Move approval on second reading.
Okay, motion by Mrs.
With the
Charles.
amendment? Oh, we don't need to.
With the amendments, right? Right, Mr. Attorney?
Yeah, the amendments are already adopted, so it's just the ordinance as is.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mrs. Charles.
Waiting on the second?
Yep.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dosher. Okay, further discussion.
One other clarification. We noted there's a few people tonight that were very concerned about having to not only have a fine, but also confined or put in jail as a result of this. What is that, again, you just feel, Bob or Mayor,
We're not
that
going
you
to
think
jail
that
anybody over this. That's a maximum penalty if you read the city codified laws. It's a maximum penalty.
Right,
We're
and
not
that's-
going
and that's
after
what
the
they're gonna hear.
maximum penalty.
And our police department doesn't, I mean, they had I checked today, they had 59 calls over the weekend to go to, you know, that's not sitting there getting traffic stops and this and that. They had 59 calls to go assist callers that called. And if we're going to, I mean, they can't do their job the way it is right now. If we're going to put something like this in, they're going to have people call them and have, you know, run here, and they're not going to have time to do this stuff. They're plenty busy the way they are, and I'm looking out for our police department because they got people to look after. I mean, they got to take care of us. They can't be
Safety of the city
chasing
comes
somebody around that
first.
doesn't have a mask on when you got some drug addict, you know, beating the crap out of his girlfriend, and you know, things are more important, I think. And I think we're putting an ordinance together that has no teeth.
I called the city manager of, well, I didn't call him, I just texted him, and I asked how many calls their police officers have responded to since they enacted the ordinance, and he said there have been 18 since September, so.
Where is this?
In Brookings.
Okay.
So
We
he
live in
said by
Mitchell,
no
though.
means, what?
We live in Mitchell, I mean,
Well, I like to think we're even better than Brookings.
I'd hope so.
So I'm just saying, he just said, you know, at least in Brookings, it has not been overwhelming in at all. It's been, the calls have been few and far between, because for the most part, people have been extremely compliant.
Well, I just think we're going to have people calling people, and I know it happened this weekend, that we had people calling people in that, for no reason, on the mask mandate, to wedding dances and stuff in different places, and I just don't think that's right. To single people out, look for things. These guys sitting up top there, they got better things to do.
Okay, we have a motion, a second on the second reading of the ordinance. All those in favor of the
Mr. Mayor, I want to make a comment before we vote on
Go
it.
ahead.
I wanted to say, I thank everybody for coming tonight, and I still do, for those that have stayed here. Obviously, we had a good showing tonight, and one of the big reasons why I stood up a week ago to have exactly what we had tonight. Obviously, we had a change in the ordinance. Many got blindsided. I think tonight was a great night of representation for both sides again, no doubt about it. I think we've seen a lot of opposition come out tonight because they were finally aware of it. So I thank everybody for coming out on both sides, but I do appreciate those that had the fair chance to finally speak to this ordinance. I'm not going to get into the mask mandate or into the masks about if it's good for you or bad for you, does it protect us, does not. I think that's been beaten enough, and I'm going to move past it. In front of us, we had some of our emails that came through from some businesses that asked us, you know, they would like to have the city put an ordinance in place, and I think it's been brought up so they could have the right to enforce it in their business. And it's sort of, I question a little bit of the fact that, or you sort of need the city council to be your guinea pig. You know, do you need our city to help you force a rule that you can easily do upon yourself in your own business. We all know Menards has been doing it for how long? I think they're running like in the 95%, somewhere in that area. I think I heard it on a statistic from, I think, Roger maybe. But like 95% out at Menards, they don't need us to tell them that. They put that in their own organization, their own corporate America put that in, and they have a perfect time doing it. Those that are looking for us to be that stepping stone, for them to be, I don't know if it's necessary, they just don't want to be the one that's got to mandate it to their customers, but they have the right to put it on their door. You know, back in our days for us that we all ran around, remember we were able to run around? Your kids, you know, you could drive your bike to town. They did it from the lake to in town all the time. When we walked in the stores, and because us kids ran around with obviously no shoes and typically no shirt back in those days, what was the bottom line you've seen on almost all those business doors? No service. And it worked. We couldn't go into those places. And I do believe the businesses have the right today to put on no masks, no service. And we shouldn't have to tell them how to operate their doors. There is businesses out there that need our help, but they can do it rightfully themselves. Menards has proved that. There's majority in the businesses, I believe, out there that do not want us to tell them how to run their business. They just don't. You know, they know they can do it themselves because it's their own private business, so let's let them do it that way. So I really, truly believe that we need to let the business owners run the way they want, and we shouldn't stand behind an ordinance to mandate them on how they should run. Going down to the end of it, I totally understand what the hospitals have teamed up and asked us to do. I totally respect all the frontline workers. I have a lot of friends that are doing it. I have family members that are doing it. But I'm going to stand behind that military guy, and I don't think it's my right to sit here and take the right away from others. That gentleman put it the best way, how he defended our country and gave us the right, our individual right. And I don't think I have the right to do that and take away the right to others and tell them they have to wear a mask. I encourage them to do what they have to do if they feel they want to wear it or not wear it. I encourage them to social distance if they want to or not. I encourage them to wash their hands and do great hygiene like the CDC recommends. But I don't think we have the right to sit here. I really, truly don't think we have the right. I think it's against their civil rights for us to sit here and tell them how they should wear a mask. So obviously you can tell by the way I'm speaking tonight, I'm not going to be in favor of this ordinance. I'm going to oppose it for those several reasons. The one, the fact that I believe it's their constitutional right that to wear a mask and hopefully do it the right way. You know, tonight we got, the other night, and even tonight, Cody Music, he gave us 500 petitions signed, and I think he had another 500 or whatever. So let's say he's over 1,000. He did it for a week, turned it into us, and added to it tonight. Penny came down, and she added in a 24-hour period over 500 of them. And the reason why these guys had a head start, because they knew it was coming. These people didn't, and they did 500 plus in one day. What if we gave them a week? How many would they have? Several thousand, I'm pretty sure about that. So I'm speaking on behalf of those that I believe have truly came out and voiced their opinion that let us choose to wear our mask when we feel it's right and not force us to put a mask on. So that's my statement I wanted to point out, and I will not be in favor of the ordinance for second adoption or for the reading of it. So.
Marty, on the other side of the coin, I would hate to have to go to where we were in March, where we forced businesses to close for that amount of time. And if this helps from that happening again, that's why one reason why I'm in favor of it.
And I think we all voted, I don't know if it was unanimous or not, I can't remember back in March, but my vote was a yes because I didn't know what COVID was going to bring us. We were fighting a battle. We didn't even know who the enemy was. And at that point in time, with the information we had, to me it made perfect sense. And we pulled it off. Well, the mayor got the word from the governor that when we were starting to loosen things up, that the state was opened up. And so I have no problem with the way that we voted back then, and with what we know today, yes, our numbers are spiking, and the U.S. is spiking, and the world is spiking, and with or without masks. Now, I wear a mask. I personally choose to do it. I go into a store. that's my decision, and my decision only until we had a mandate last week, and I didn't change as a result of it because I was already doing it. But as Marty pointed out, the fact that we are taking rights away from people, and I'm not comfortable sitting here doing the same thing. Now, in saying that, we've had this in place for a week. I don't know if it's too early to start looking at it, but numbers are starting to slowly come down, and I hope that is a trend. What can we attribute it to? One of the things I think that we should be looking at is education. We've been doing a great job in having our health facilities in the media. They've come through, they've given us a lot of information. Now, you can tell people to wear a mask, but until it gets to a point where it's getting out of control, they're probably not going to listen to you because they're just going to do what they feel that they're comfortable with. But once our numbers start going up, Avera, if you guys remember, came to us over a month ago and said, please wear your mask. We're starting to have issues. We're not asking for a shutdown or a mandate. 2 weeks later, they came back and says, we want a mandate. And then at that point in time, there was enough of us that got with Bob and said, give him the direction to go. Now, in my mind, it might even be more than just masks. It's getting it out to the public that we have an issue. We have a big concern here, and we're losing this battle. And so now people are doing a little bit better. I asked myself this question, and I don't know how you would answer it, but tomorrow you're going to confront or have somebody with COVID in your existence. Would you rather have them a mask, that person in a mask within 6 feet, or no mask and greater than 6 feet? Well, I picked the 6 feet and greater just because that's where I feel there's a safe distance. So in my mind, that's what people need to do. With or without masks, you've got to be able to social distance. As Marty says, let's follow the CDC rules. So I think it's working because we're talking about it more. You know, we brought how many people into the palace here tonight to visit, and a week ago there was a large crowd, and they've been on the radio, they've been in the paper. I think that is part of what we're seeing here for improving, and I hope it continues. Now, if it goes the other way, then I think maybe we might have to revisit it a little bit. But right now, I'm going to be a no on mandate, and I'm going to be yes on suggesting and encouraging masks.
One quick question for Stephanie. We're talking about getting masks to hand out to different businesses around town, so if people come in and don't have one, we can give it to them. Talk about putting signage on doors. The city is doing that, correct?
Well, we're waiting till today because
Yeah,
depending on what your decision is today, that's going to impact what we need to do. We already have a quote for masks if you choose to do that. We also have signs, but they would obviously have to be changed if you're no longer mandating it.
And I'm not against wearing a mask.
Ready to go either way,
I'm not against wearing a mask. I wear a mask where I feel I'm not comfortable. I mean, if I'm not within 6 feet of somebody, I don't think somebody should be forced to wear a mask. And I commend our healthcare frontline workers. But like the soldier up there said, I mean, he goes and fights for our country. We shouldn't tell him he's got to wear a mask or anybody else, I don't think. And I believe that we have an ordinance that probably isn't very enforceable, and we don't want it to be, and I don't understand. That's the part I don't understand. If we're going to have an ordinance, we should enforce it, and until we have a tougher ordinance, I'm not going to be for it.
Well, do I know if masks are going to help? No. You know, I'm trusting the medical profession. I'm trusting what they say. You know, we sit up here, we listen to the good, the bad. I just have no idea if they're going to help. They say they are, so I'm trusting it. And that's the way I'm going to vote. I'm putting my trust in the experts, and that's what I do with everything, you know. So I'm hoping it helps, because if it don't, you know, you got to go to the next measure, and I don't want to see it happen. I don't want to see closures. I don't want to see school closing. I don't want to see small businesses go out. You know, what I do is right in the middle of this. It hurts. You know, my businesses that are in our building, they close down, 4 of them. You know, that means they have no rent. It hurts. I understand both sides, but the numbers are getting horrible. And if the medical profession says it helps, I am going to believe them. So I'm going to vote for the mask mandate.
Are you ready to vote then? All those in favor, second reading, ordinance 020-2013, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So 5-3, it passes. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Rice, second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? Okay. Roll call.
Allen,
Aye.
Barrington,
No.
McCardle,
Nay.
Dosher, Rice,
Aye.
Sabers,
Aye.
Charks,
Aye.
Smith.
At least you don't have to break a tie. Nay.
Okay, motion carries, it's adopted. Do you want to remove resolution?
Yes, I will. I don't know how you want to do that. Should I just ask to be removed, or should I
You have to have a motion.
motion to deny?
How about a motion to table?
I'll move to
Motion to
table.
table.
If we ever need to bring it back someday, then it's ready.
Oh, good point.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle to table. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We're adjourned.
It's past your bedtime. Huh? It's way past your bed. 10 o'clock.